Beneath the sands of time and the shadows of ancient ruins lie secrets that defy explanation. Structures older than recorded history, artifacts that shouldn't exist, and civilizations that vanished without a trace. These are the mysteries that haunt archaeologists and ignite our imagination. What stories were lost, and why do some questions remain unanswered? Tonight, we step into the unknown, peeling back the layers of history to confront the strange, the puzzling, and the utterly inexplicable. Are you ready to witness the past as it refuses to reveal itself? Beneath the sprawling avenues and towering pyramids of Teotihuacan, one of the most enigmatic cities of ancient Mesoamerica, there lies a secret few have seen. Hidden under layers of stone and earth, archaeologists have uncovered a labyrinth of tunnels, chambers, and cavities, some filled with a substance that gleams with a metallic sheen: liquid mercury. The first discovery sent ripples of astonishment through the archaeological community. Mercury, known for its toxicity and rarity in ancient contexts, is not something easily handled or stored in large quantities. Yet here it lies, pooled in underground chambers, glimmering as if it were a mirror to another world beneath the city. The tunnels themselves are narrow, dark, and labyrinthine, carved with precision that hints at deliberate planning rather than random excavation. Some chambers are small, almost claustrophobic, barely enough for a person to crouch within. Others stretch into expansive voids, their ceilings disappearing into darkness. The walls are smooth, polished in places, suggesting care and intention. Archaeologists have speculated that these spaces may have been ritualistic, designed for ceremonies or initiations. But the presence of mercury adds a layer of perplexity that defies simple explanation. How and why would an ancient civilization transport, store, and contain this liquid metal? Historical records tell us little. The people of Teotihuacan left no deciphered written records that clearly explain their engineering choices or spiritual practices. Yet the city itself speaks volumes, through its precise urban grid, its monumental pyramids, and the alignment of its structures with celestial events. Mercury, in this context, may not have been a mere industrial byproduct. It may have had symbolic or ceremonial significance. Mercury has long been associated with transformation, fluidity, and the boundary between the tangible and the ethereal. Could these underground pools have been part of a ritualistic attempt to commune with the divine, or perhaps to mimic the subterranean underworld that many Mesoamerican myths describe? Archaeologists have also noted that some tunnels appear to extend far beyond the chambers containing mercury, twisting and turning like veins beneath the earth. These passages have yielded small artifacts, pottery fragments, obsidian tools, and figurines, suggesting that the tunnels were visited repeatedly, not left abandoned. Yet no clear exit points or practical function for the mercury have been established. Could the tunnels themselves be a symbolic labyrinth, a journey from the surface world into a hidden sacred domain? Or might they have been designed to amplify acoustic, thermal, or even spiritual effects that we cannot fully measure today? The scale of the mercury discovery is itself a mystery. The quantities found are significant, far more than could be easily obtained or transported in a society without advanced metallurgy or modern containment technology. Mercury is liquid at room temperature, notoriously difficult to store without it contaminating its surroundings. And yet, here it was, shimmering pools and narrow rivulets flowing through stone channels, untouched for over a millennium. Some researchers suggest it could have been used as part of alchemical experimentation, a kind of ancient chemistry lost to time. Others hypothesize that it may have been intended as a reflective surface, symbolically representing water, the underworld, or even the night sky. Scientific analysis has confirmed the mercury's purity, and traces of other metals and compounds have been detected, though their purpose remains unclear. Did the Teotihuacanos understand the toxic properties of mercury, or did it hold a power that outweighed any danger in their minds? Was it stored as a sacred offering, a conduit to gods, or as part of some long-forgotten technological practice? Modern science can illuminate its composition, but it cannot fully explain the cultural context that led to its placement. The tunnels themselves continue to resist easy mapping. Despite advanced ground-penetrating radar, remote sensing, and careful excavation, sections remain inaccessible, blocked by debris or narrow constrictions. Explorers speak of an oppressive, almost electric silence within these subterranean corridors. Some claim that the reflective mercury under the faint light of headlamps seems to shimmer with a life of its own, as if the pools themselves are guardians of a secret we are not yet meant to understand. Speculative theories abound, often straddling the line between scientific curiosity and imaginative conjecture. Some fringe suggestions propose that the mercury was part of a network of energy channels designed to harness or amplify natural forces, though no physical evidence confirms such claims. Others point to cosmological symbolism, the underground mercury representing the primordial waters from which life emerged, a literal and metaphorical mirror of the heavens above. While these ideas remain unproven, they underscore the profound sense of mystery that surrounds Teotihuacan. What is perhaps most striking is the contrast between the surface and the subterranean world. Above ground, Teotihuacan is monumental, ordered, and comprehensible. Its pyramids align with the sun and the moon. Its avenues march in geometric precision. Below, the tunnels are dark, fluid, and unpredictable. Mercury pools reflect an unfamiliar light, creating a world that is both part of the city and profoundly alien to it. It is a space where human hands and ingenuity met natural elements in a way that still challenges our understanding. And so, the Teotihuacan liquid mercury tunnels remain a riddle. Their full extent is unknown, their purpose unconfirmed. Each excavation, each analysis, raises new questions even as it uncovers fragments of the past. Why did the Teotihuacanos risk the handling of such a dangerous substance? What ceremonies, technologies, or beliefs lay behind its presence? And how much of this hidden world remains buried, waiting silently beneath the earth, a mirror to mysteries we may never fully grasp? As we leave the shadowed tunnels of Teotihuacan behind, where mercury pools glimmered like fragments of a forgotten underworld, our journey into the unexplained moves northward, far from the deserts and pyramids of ancient Mesoamerica, into the dense forests and river valleys of the northeastern United States. Here, the soil of Maine has yielded a discovery both small in size and immense in implication. A single coin, modest in appearance, yet extraordinary in mystery. Known as the Maine Penny, it sits quietly in a glass case, its copper surface dull with age, yet its story radiates questions that echo across centuries. The coin itself is simple, almost unremarkable at first glance. A Norwegian silver penny, struck during the reign of Olaf Kyrre, who ruled in the late 11th century. Its design is faint but distinct. A kingly profile on one side, inscriptions along the rim, symbols that confirm its origin in medieval Scandinavia. And yet, this single artifact was found far from any Viking settlement recognized by mainstream archaeology, buried among Native American layers in an area known as the Goddard Site, near Penobscot Bay. The discovery has raised eyebrows, sparked debates, and challenged long-held assumptions about pre-Columbian contact in North America. The context of the find is key. The Goddard Site, excavated in the 1950s and 1960s, is a well-documented Native American settlement. Archaeologists uncovered hundreds of artifacts, from tools and pottery shards to ornamental objects, carefully cataloging the layers of occupation. Among these, nestled in the soil, lay the Norwegian coin, its presence an anomaly. How did a coin minted in Trondheim, thousands of miles away, come to rest in Maine, centuries before Columbus's voyages officially bridged Europe and the Americas? Mainstream historians have offered cautious explanations. Some suggest trade networks, indirect and improbable, may have carried the coin southward, exchanged through successive cultures until it reached the site. Others propose accidental transport, perhaps dropped by European explorers centuries later, inadvertently mixed into older layers of excavation. But skeptics of these theories note the precision of the archaeological context. The coin was found in situ, beneath undisturbed layers, among artifacts datable to the early centuries of the second millennium. If its placement was indeed accidental, it would require an extraordinary series of coincidences, each one stretching the limits of probability. Speculation has followed in equal measure. Some researchers entertain the possibility of Norse travelers reaching the area directly, their presence leaving traces that have otherwise vanished into the forest and mud of Maine. Could the coin be a solitary remnant of a fleeting voyage, a testament to exploration now lost to time? Others propose symbolic or ceremonial reasons for its inclusion. Perhaps the coin was brought intentionally, a gift, an offering, or even a curiosity traded through complex networks of indigenous communities. The truth is elusive. Every scenario is tantalizing, yet each raises more questions than it answers. The Maine Penny also prompts reflection on the nature of artifacts themselves. A small object, easily overlooked, can become a linchpin in historical interpretation, reshaping narratives of contact, migration, and cultural exchange. Unlike grand monuments or extensive ruins, the penny's power lies in its subtlety. Its copper surface bears the wear of countless hands, yet it has survived centuries of soil, water, and time. Holding it in our imagination, we confront the possibility that history is never as complete as we assume. One object, lost or found, can ripple across centuries, challenging the certainties we take for granted. Archaeologists and numismatists have conducted detailed analyses, examining the coin's metallurgy, wear patterns, and corrosion. The composition matches Norwegian pennies of the period, and there is no evidence to suggest modern forgery. Its authenticity is widely accepted among specialists, yet its presence in Maine remains unexplained. Some fringe theories have emerged, imagining secret Viking outposts, hidden trade routes, or even transoceanic journeys that left only the faintest trace. While these ideas stretch the imagination, they underscore the profound enigma of a single, unaccompanied coin appearing thousands of miles from its origin. The setting of the Goddard site itself adds layers to the mystery. The riverine landscape, dense forests, and harsh winters would have posed significant challenges to any traveler arriving from across the Atlantic. If the penny arrived through direct Norse contact, what might have been the purpose of the journey? Did Viking explorers penetrate inland, trading, observing, or attempting settlement? Or did the coin circulate indirectly, moving from hand to hand over generations before finding its way into the soil? Each hypothesis opens a corridor of historical imagination, yet none can be confirmed definitively. Even the simplest questions about the Maine Penny provoke deeper reflection. Was it an isolated curiosity, accidentally preserved, or a deliberate marker of human connection long forgotten? Could there be other artifacts still buried, hidden beneath the earth, waiting to tell a story we are only beginning to perceive? And what does its presence reveal about the fluidity of culture, trade, and movement in an era we often imagine as rigidly separated by oceans and distance? In contemplating the Maine Penny, we confront the fragile boundary between certainty and speculation. The coin sits quietly, a tiny object with the weight of centuries pressing upon it, yet it refuses to yield its secrets fully. Its existence hints at the possibility of histories that diverge from conventional narratives, histories where a single item can challenge our understanding of exploration, encounter, and exchange. Like the shimmering Mercury tunnels of Teotihuacan, it is a tangible remnant that invites wonder, urging us to question what else may lie hidden just beneath the surface of what we think we know. The Maine Penny reminds us that history is rarely complete, and mystery is often found in the smallest details. Each layer of soil, each artifact unearthed, each careful examination can expand or upend our understanding of the past. And as we peer into the silent, green forests of Maine, we are left with an invitation to imagine what other stories lie buried, quietly waiting for discovery, ready to remind us that the world of the past is far stranger and far richer than we often allow ourselves to believe. From the quiet, forested soil of Maine, where a single coin hints at journeys long forgotten, we now turn our gaze across continents and millennia to the sun-scorched sands of Egypt. Beneath the endless horizon of the Nile Valley lie tombs and burial chambers that have preserved human history for thousands of years. Silent witnesses to lives, rituals, and beliefs now largely veiled in mystery. Among these preserved remains, a phenomenon emerges that has both fascinated and perplexed scholars for decades. The so-called screaming mummies, human remains whose expressions seem frozen in a silent, eternal scream. The first encounters with these mummies reveal a startling detail. The faces appear contorted, mouths open, eyes wide in a way that defies natural decomposition. It is a striking, almost cinematic sight, a visage of terror captured not by art, but by the cruel precision of death and the mysterious forces of preservation. These are not isolated instances. Multiple mummies have been discovered with similar expressions, their features preserved in plaster, resin, or natural desiccation, offering a glimpse of agony that seems at first glance inexplicable. The historical context is crucial. Many of these mummies date to the Second Intermediate Period, a time of political instability, famine, and foreign invasion in Egypt's long history. Scholars note that some of the individuals may have been buried hastily or outside traditional funerary norms, perhaps victims of social upheaval or violent circumstances. Yet the precise contortions of the faces remain a mystery. How could the process of embalming or natural decomposition produce such uniform expressions of terror? Are these the result of chemical reactions in the body and embalming materials, or do they suggest something more deliberate? Scientific investigation has offered partial explanations. Modern forensic analysis points to the possibility of post-mortem muscular contraction, a phenomenon known as the death pose, where the mouth opens and facial muscles stiffen. Certain mummification techniques, particularly those involving rapid desiccation or the application of natron and resins, can accentuate these expressions, producing the haunting appearance seen in the museum displays. Yet, even with these explanations, questions linger. Why do some mummies display normal features while others are forever frozen in a silent scream? Why does the effect appear more frequently in certain tombs or periods? The stories surrounding these mummies add to their mystique. One of the most famous examples is the mummy of an unknown individual discovered in the Deir el-Bahari necropolis. Catalogued meticulously in museum records, the corpse's face is unnaturally contorted, the mouth wide, lips drawn back, teeth bared in what appears to be a scream. Historical texts provide little guidance. No known inscriptions or funerary texts explain this expression. Some scholars speculate that it reflects a violent death, possibly murder or execution. Others suggest ritual significance. Could the contorted faces symbolize spiritual terror, punishment in the afterlife, or the weight of sins carried into eternity? The debate extends beyond conventional Egyptology. Fringe theories, while controversial, cannot be ignored entirely because they illustrate the profound impact these artifacts have on human imagination. Some researchers have suggested that the screams represent a spiritual phenomenon, capturing not physical death but psychic anguish, a belief that consciousness or emotion could be preserved in the body beyond mortality. Others point to extraterrestrial or supernatural interpretations, though such claims remain speculative and unsupported by empirical evidence. What these theories do reveal, however, is how strongly the imagery of the screaming mummies resonates across cultures and time, a silent message that evokes fear, wonder, and curiosity in equal measure. The physical environment of the tombs themselves amplifies the mystery. Narrow passageways, stone walls, and chambers carved deep into the limestone cliffs create an atmosphere of isolation and solemnity. The air within is dry and cool, preserving bodies and artifacts for millennia. In this quiet, still space, the mummies' contorted faces seem almost animate, as if frozen in a moment of horror or realization. To stand before them is to confront an uncomfortable question. Are we witnessing the physical consequences of decay and embalming, or a glimpse into a past that retains the echoes of human emotion in ways we scarcely understand? Contextual clues from associated artifacts add subtle but important details. Pottery fragments, funerary amulets, and remnants of linen wrappings indicate that these individuals were buried with care, even if the circumstances of their deaths were unusual. In some tombs, inscriptions speak of turmoil, invasions, or famine, hinting at societal conditions that may have contributed to untimely or violent deaths. Yet no written record explains the peculiar expressions themselves. The silence of history is nearly total, leaving modern observers to reconstruct narrative possibilities from fragments, speculation, and careful forensic study. What makes the screaming mummies particularly haunting is the tension between certainty and uncertainty. Science can explain much about preservation, chemistry, and anatomy. Archaeology can place the bodies within a social and historical framework. But the visceral, almost human response they provoke, the sense of horror, of pain frozen in stone, is something that cannot be fully quantified. It is a reminder that even in a civilization as extensively studied as ancient Egypt, mysteries remain that evade clear categorization, inhabiting the space between history, biology, and imagination. As we examine these mummies, questions proliferate. Were they victims of violence, sudden death, or ritual sacrifice? Did ancient Egyptians intend to preserve these expressions as warnings, memorials, or symbols of a spiritual journey? Or are we imposing modern interpretation onto a past whose symbolic language we can only partially grasp? Each hypothesis opens another layer of inquiry, revealing that the screaming mummies are more than a curiosity. They are a lens through which we confront the fragility, complexity, and enigma of human experience. And so, as we step away from the quiet halls of Egyptian museums and the tombs carved into desert cliffs, the screaming mummies remain a silent testament to history's unresolved questions. Their faces stare outward, challenging observers to consider not only the mechanics of death and preservation, but also the deeper human story embedded in every wrinkle, every contorted feature. What voices, emotions, and events lie hidden behind the plastered and desiccated flesh? What has been lost to time? And what remains captured forever in the unyielding gaze of a scream that refuses to be silenced? From the desolate sands of Egypt, where the faces of the screaming mummies speak in silent anguish, our journey turns once again to the Americas, to the verdant lowlands of what is now southern Mexico. Here, along the rivers of Veracruz and Tabasco, the ancient Olmec civilization, the mother culture of Mesoamerica, constructed monumental stoneworks that continue to baffle and intrigue. Among their most enigmatic creations are the so-called Olmec Altars, colossal stone structures that defy easy explanation, standing silently amid the ruins of ceremonial centers like La Venta, San Lorenzo, and Tres Zapotes. At first glance, the term altar seems straightforward, evoking images of ritual sacrifice or offerings to gods. Yet the Olmec altars are anything but simple. Carved from single blocks of basalt, some weighing tens of tons, they feature deeply carved motifs. Human figures seemingly embedded within jaguar-like creatures, interlaced serpent forms, and abstract geometric designs whose meanings elude definitive interpretation. These massive stones are often positioned in ceremonial plazas, sometimes flanked by other monoliths, sometimes oriented along axes that may align with astronomical phenomena. The scale, craftsmanship, and precision of these altars speak to a society of immense technical skill and spiritual ambition. But what exactly were they intended to convey? Archaeologists have spent decades attempting to decode the symbolism of the altars. Some suggest they were thrones, perhaps for rulers who claimed divine or semi-divine status. Others argue they may represent shamanic transformation, human figures merging with jaguars, the apex predator and a central figure in Olmec cosmology. The embedded figures, carved in deep relief, sometimes appear to be reclining, yet their forms are exaggerated, almost surreal. Did these representations depict rulers undergoing ritual transformation, or were they symbolic embodiments of cosmic principles? The placement and construction of the altars deepen the mystery. Many were quarried from distant sites, the basalt transported across miles of jungle and river. La Venta's Altar 4, for instance, is a massive monolith weighing several tens of tons, moved from a quarry that lies at least 60 kilometers away. The logistical feat alone is remarkable, yet the purpose of such effort remains uncertain. Were these altars central to religious ceremonies, or did they serve as territorial markers, statements of power, or objects of cosmological significance? Perhaps they were all of these things, simultaneously, a reminder that ancient symbolism often defies single interpretations. The carvings themselves provoke further questions. Some figures appear to be infants or small humans emerging from jaguar-like creatures, their faces serene, almost detached. Others depict seated figures, hands positioned in ways that suggest ritual gestures, yet their exact meaning is lost. Some scholars interpret these images as shamanic initiations, representations of spiritual journeys between worlds, or depictions of mythological events recorded in a language of stone that survives only partially in other Mesoamerican iconography. Yet no written record explains them definitively. The Olmec left no deciphered script that could illuminate these monumental symbols. Beyond the iconography, the altar's relationship to their environment invites speculation. Many are aligned with rivers, plazas, and other natural features. Some appear to correspond with celestial events, the solstices, equinoxes, or perhaps the rising of particular stars. Were these altars used in ceremonies tied to the agricultural calendar, ensuring the fertility of the land and the prosperity of the people? Or did they serve as focal points for political power, their monumental presence a visual assertion of authority and divine favor? Every theory is plausible, yet none can be confirmed with certainty. Fringe theories have occasionally emerged, reflecting the awe these structures inspire. Some have suggested the altars were more than symbolic. They may have served as ritualistic instruments of sound or vibration, or even as part of a network of ceremonial power centers connecting distant Olmec sites. Others have speculated that they encode advanced astronomical knowledge or esoteric spiritual teachings. While these ideas remain unproven, they highlight a fundamental truth. The Olmec altars challenge our understanding, forcing us to reconsider the sophistication and intentions of a civilization that existed over 3,000 years ago. The human element is also central to the mystery. Moving and carving such enormous stones required coordination, labor, and social organization. What motivated the Olmec to invest so much time, energy, and risk into these constructions? Were the altars offerings to unseen deities, tools for spiritual transformation, or monuments designed to impress and control populations? And if so, why did the symbolism become increasingly abstract over time, with later Olmec sites showing variations that hint at evolving belief systems? Even in their current fragmented state, the altars convey a quiet authority. They sit amid the ruins of platforms, plazas, and residential compounds, silent witnesses to ceremonies that have been lost to history. Visitors today often remark on the almost tactile presence of these stones, the sense that they are not merely objects but vessels of memory, holding echoes of chants, rituals, and gestures performed millennia ago. In some respects, the altars function as a bridge between the known and the unknown, between archaeological evidence and the spiritual imagination of the Olmec themselves. The enigmatic nature of the altars invites reflection. They are at once concrete and abstract, monumental yet intimate, human yet transcendent. Each carving, each alignment, each choice of stone and site raises questions that remain unanswered. What narratives were the Olmec seeking to preserve in these carvings? What knowledge, belief, or power was encoded in the motion of hands, the merging of human and jaguar, the positioning of a massive stone in a ceremonial plaza? And, perhaps most importantly, what else remains hidden beneath the soil, waiting to reveal another piece of this complex puzzle? As we leave the verdant jungles of Veracruz and the silent plazas of La Venta, the Olmec altars stand as enduring enigmas, monuments to a civilization that continues to provoke awe and speculation. Their massive forms, intricate carvings, and mysterious purposes remind us that the past is never fully accessible, and that the questions we ask may be as significant as the answers we uncover. In the shadows of these ancient stones, one cannot help but wonder how much more of the Olmec world remains unseen, and what secrets might still be waiting to emerge from the depths of time. From the monumental stones of the Olmec altars, where carvings of jaguar human figures whisper of power, ritual, and mystery, our journey now carries us across continents and oceans to the fertile plains of the Indus Valley. Here, in what is now Pakistan and northwest India, lies one of the earliest urban civilizations known to history, the Indus Valley Civilization. Among its many remarkable constructions, the granaries of Harappa stand out, massive brick structures that continue to puzzle archaeologists with their scale, precision, and enigmatic purpose. The Harappa Granaries rise above the flat, organized streets of the city, their mud brick walls strong and imposing. Excavations reveal carefully laid platforms, raised floors, and thick walls, some measuring several meters in width. The largest of these structures appears designed to hold immense quantities of grain, yet their exact function remains uncertain. Some are simple rectangular buildings. Others are more elaborate, with internal partitions, ventilation channels, and raised platforms suggesting attention to air circulation and preservation. The granaries are silent, empty now, but they speak of meticulous planning and advanced engineering, a testament to a civilization that flourished nearly 5,000 years ago. Archaeologists have long debated the function of these structures. The conventional explanation is straightforward. These were communal or state-run granaries, used to store surplus crops and stabilize food supplies in an urban society dependent on agriculture. Their size and construction suggest careful planning and centralized authority, implying a level of social organization remarkable for the time. Yet, even within this practical framework, questions remain. Why were the granaries constructed with such uniform precision across distant urban centers? And why do some features appear overly complex for mere storage, hinting at purposes that go beyond the preservation of grain. The layout and construction of the granaries provide further intrigue. Raised platforms, often built in perfect alignment with the surrounding streets, suggest knowledge of both architecture and environmental factors. Ventilation channels, small gaps between walls, and specific orientations may have been designed to keep grain dry, safe from pests, and protected from seasonal flooding. Yet even with modern engineering understanding, replicating the efficiency and durability of these ancient structures is challenging. Could these granaries have served additional, symbolic, or ceremonial functions, rather than purely practical ones? Evidence of their contents is tantalizingly scarce. Few remnants of grain have survived, and what little remains is difficult to analyze conclusively. Some researchers propose that the granaries were designed for multiple crops, or perhaps for commodities beyond food, textiles, trade goods, or ritual materials. Others suggest that the immense scale of the buildings may indicate a form of social control, a means of storing wealth centrally to manage trade, taxation, or famine relief. If so, the granaries reflect not just technical skill, but also the sophistication of an administrative system still largely invisible to us today. The mystery deepens when one considers the broader context of the Indus Valley civilization. Harappa, Mohenjo-Daro, Dholavira, all feature carefully planned streets, drainage systems, and standardized bricks, suggesting an urban uniformity unprecedented for the time. The granaries fit within this larger pattern, yet they remain the most enigmatic. Why devote such enormous labor to buildings whose exact purpose eludes us? And why do the granaries appear to have been abandoned or modified before the civilization's eventual decline? No written records survive that clearly explain their role, leaving modern scholars to interpret function from form and placement alone. Speculative theories have arisen to fill the gaps. Some researchers propose that the granaries were part of a complex system of ritualized food storage, perhaps linked to seasonal festivals or religious observances. Others imagine that the raised platforms and internal partitions created microenvironments, capable of preserving not only grain, but also ceremonial offerings or sacred items. A few more fringe hypotheses even suggest that the granaries could have had defensive or symbolic functions, representing state control, divine blessing, or cosmic order manifested in brick and mortar. While these ideas remain conjectural, they underscore the enduring fascination of structures that speak so powerfully of a civilization now silent. The Harappa Granaries also invite reflection on human ingenuity. Constructed without metal tools, advanced machinery, or modern knowledge of aerodynamics, these buildings have survived millennia. They demonstrate mastery over materials, spatial organization, and environmental adaptation. Yet their very survival poses questions. What methods and knowledge allowed the builders to plan and execute such monumental structures? What social systems, labor organization, and cultural priorities made this possible in an era without written instructions or standardized measurements comparable to our own? Even in their present state, the granaries evoke a profound sense of scale and purpose. Standing among their massive walls, one can imagine the bustle of activity, laborers carrying grain, overseers managing storage, the city's population relying on these structures for survival. And yet, without definitive evidence, the narrative remains incomplete. We are left to wonder whether the granaries were primarily functional, primarily symbolic, or a complex combination of both. What stories, what decisions, what daily lives intersected with these brick edifices? Ultimately, the Harappa Granaries remind us that mystery is often inseparable from history. They are not just remnants of an ancient civilization. They are questions cast in brick and mortar, invitations to explore the ingenuity, ambition, and social complexity of a people who thrived thousands of years ago. Each wall, Each platform, each carefully measured space challenges us to consider what we know and what we do not know about the Indus Valley. And as we peer into the empty chambers and silent corridors, one cannot help but ask, what else remains hidden beneath the plains of the Indus, waiting to reveal more of a story that is only partially told? From the organized streets and monumental granaries of Harappa, where the ingenuity of an ancient civilization still whispers through brick and mortar, we return to the sun-baked cliffs of Egypt, to the arid valley of Deir el-Bahari. Here, nestled against towering limestone cliffs that rise sharply above the Nile's west bank, stands one of the most extraordinary architectural achievements of the ancient world, the mortuary Temple of Hatshepsut. Unlike any other Egyptian temple, its terraces ascend in a series of linear, elegant steps, blending seamlessly with the natural cliffs behind it, as if the stone itself had grown upward from the desert floor. The temple immediately evokes a sense of harmony, order, and solemnity. 3 terraced levels, connected by long ramps, are punctuated by colonnades that stretch in precise symmetry. Inside, niches once held statues of the queen, reliefs depicting her divine birth, and inscriptions recounting trading expeditions to the distant land of Punt. Yet beneath this architectural perfection lies a subtle enigma, one that continues to fascinate archaeologists, historians, and visitors alike. Hatshepsut was a rare figure in Egyptian history, a female pharaoh who assumed full authority in a male-dominated hierarchy. Her temple, grandiose and innovative, stands as a testament not only to her power, but also to choices that remain partially unexplained even millennia later. The most immediate mystery concerns the purpose and symbolism of the temple's design. While Egyptologists agree that it served as a mortuary temple, a place to honor Hatshepsut's life and secure her journey in the afterlife, the way it integrates with the surrounding cliffs is unusual. The terraces appear almost suspended between earth and sky, with horizontal lines cutting across the verticality of the rock face. Did the architecture merely reflect aesthetic innovation, or was there a deeper cosmological significance, an alignment with solar phenomena, sacred geography, or unseen spiritual principles? The temple seems to invite observation, contemplation, and perhaps a journey of initiation, yet the precise nature of the experience it was designed to create remains elusive. Inside the temple, reliefs and inscriptions tell a partial story. Hatshepsut is depicted in traditional male pharaoh garb in some panels, yet elsewhere she appears in feminine form. Scenes of her expedition to Punt show ships laden with exotic goods, frankincense, myrrh, gold, and live animals, tracing a route to lands still only partially identified by modern scholars. Why emphasize this distant trade so prominently? Was it merely a record of prosperity and divine favor, or did it hold ritualistic and symbolic meaning, conveying Hatshepsut's mastery over far-flung realms and the natural world? Each carving is deliberate, yet each leaves questions hanging between the lines of stone. Some mysteries of the temple are more subtle and structural. Certain chambers and passageways lead nowhere, dead ends or storage areas whose contents have long since vanished. Archaeologists debate whether these spaces were functional, ceremonial, or symbolic, possibly representing stages of spiritual ascent or areas intended to protect sacred relics. Ventilation shafts, water channels, and unusual foundations hint at engineering choices that remain only partially understood. The integration of natural and man-made elements, the terraces echoing cliff lines, the ramps aligning with sight lines toward the Nile, suggests a civilization deeply attuned to both landscape and ritual. Yet the meaning of these alignments continues to elude definitive explanation. Hatshepsut's mortuary temple also holds a human dimension of intrigue. For centuries, her reign was deliberately obscured. Later pharaohs defaced her statues, erased her name, and attempted to remove her from historical memory. Yet her temple endures, a resilient monument to a ruler who defied convention. Could the anomalies within the structure, hidden chambers, unusual alignments, or seemingly redundant architectural features be connected to her unique position in history? Were they intended as subtle statements of authority, safeguards of her memory, or markers of esoteric knowledge meant to endure beyond human interference? Speculative theories abound, reflecting the fascination the temple inspires. Some propose that its terraces and ramps were designed as ceremonial stages, perhaps for initiation rites or rituals that mirrored the journey of the soul through the afterlife. Others suggest astronomical alignment, noting that the ramps and colonnades may correspond to solar events or constellations, connecting the terrestrial temple to celestial order. A few more fringe ideas imagine secret chambers containing hidden texts, treasures, or technologies lost to time. While these hypotheses cannot be confirmed, they underscore a key truth. The temple continues to engage our imagination, bridging the tangible remains of history with the intangible mysteries of intention and belief. Even the temple's aesthetic choices provoke reflection. The interplay of light and shadow across the colonnades, the rhythm of the terraces, the careful proportioning of spaces, these are elements that evoke awe and contemplation. Were they designed solely for visual effect, or to evoke specific emotional and spiritual responses in visitors, priests, and worshippers? In walking through the temple today, one senses a deliberate choreography of sightlines and experiences, as if the stone itself communicates ideas and values that we are only beginning to decipher. The Temple of Hatshepsut, in its elegance and complexity, offers a profound reminder of the limits of historical understanding. Unlike granaries, altars, or mummies, this is a structure created deliberately to endure, to tell a story, and yet it leaves key questions unresolved. What secrets remain hidden within the walls, beneath the terraces, or in chambers yet unexplored? What insights about Hatshepsut's reign, her beliefs, and her intentions are encoded in the very fabric of stone, awaiting discovery? As we step back from the terraces, watching sunlight shift across the cliff face, the temple appears both monumental and intimate, a space where history and mystery converge. It is a reminder that even in the most studied civilizations, even in monuments long examined and recorded, enigmas endure. And as the wind whispers through the colonnades, one is left to ponder what has been intentionally preserved, what has been lost, and what still lies waiting to be understood in the silent halls of the Temple of Hatshepsut. From the terraces of Hatshepsut's mortuary temple, where architecture, ritual, and enigma merge in stone, we return to the fertile plains of South Asia, to the ancient cities of the Indus Valley. Beyond the granaries and bustling streets of Harappa and Mohenjo-Daro, there lies a feature of this civilization that continues to astonish. A drainage and sewer system so advanced that it rivals some modern counterparts, yet its purpose, design, and technological sophistication remain partly unexplained. Walking through the excavated streets of Mohenjo-Daro, one cannot help but notice the precision of its infrastructure. Broad avenues are flanked by houses of baked brick, each aligned with remarkable uniformity. Beneath and alongside these streets runs a network of covered drains, channels designed to carry water and waste away from homes and public spaces. Stone and brick channels, fitted with slabs and occasionally capped with removable covers, hint at deliberate engineering decisions, crafted to serve both practical and perhaps even ceremonial functions. The Indus people seem to have mastered the movement of water through urban space in ways that remain astonishing for a society without modern tools or written manuals. The scale of the drainage system is particularly remarkable. Major streets were flanked by parallel drains, sometimes wide enough to walk through, with smaller branch channels serving individual residences. Bathrooms, wash areas, and even private latrines connect directly to these drains, demonstrating a level of urban planning that suggests careful attention to public health, hygiene, and environmental management. Some drains appear to slope gently to facilitate the flow of water, while others were built to prevent flooding during seasonal rains. For a civilization that flourished nearly 4,500 years ago, such foresight and precision remain extraordinary. Yet, as much as we can measure and analyze, the drainage system also raises questions. How did the Indus engineers determine the precise gradients needed for effective flow? What materials and techniques allowed them to construct channels that have endured millennia of use and burial? And perhaps most intriguingly, why did such a sophisticated system arise in the absence of extensive written records? Unlike Mesopotamia or Egypt, the Indus Valley civilization left behind inscriptions too brief to explain construction methods or municipal planning. The knowledge required to conceive, design, and maintain this network seems almost impossibly advanced for a society whose administrative practices remain largely invisible to us. The system's sophistication extends to subtle design features. Covered drains at street intersections, removable brick slabs for cleaning, and sealed outlets suggest an understanding of maintenance and long-term usability. Some researchers have noted that drains occasionally include settling chambers or interceptors designed to prevent debris from clogging the system. Others observe that the alignment of certain channels may have been influenced by topography or even seasonal river patterns, highlighting a nuanced understanding of local hydrology. Yet despite these technical marvels, much about the system's conception remains speculative. Was it purely functional, designed to protect the city from disease and flooding, or did it hold symbolic or ritual significance as well? Speculative theories abound, prompted by the Indus Valley's broader mysteries. Some scholars propose that the drainage system was part of a ritualized urban design, reflecting beliefs about cleanliness, purification, and spiritual order. Water may have held sacred meaning, its controlled flow a manifestation of cosmic harmony or civic authority. Others suggest the system functioned as a mechanism of social control, reinforcing order, hierarchy, and collective responsibility. And a few more imaginative hypotheses posit that the network reflects knowledge of engineering principles lost to later generations, a technical expertise that would not reappear on such a scale for millennia. While these ideas cannot be confirmed, they emphasize the system's role as more than a set of pipes and channels. It is a testament to a civilization capable of blending utility, planning, and perhaps symbolic expression in ways that still inspire awe. The human element of the drainage system invites further reflection. Thousands of residents, artisans, and laborers would have been involved in its construction, requiring coordination, planning, and sustained effort over generations. Such an endeavor implies not only technical skill, but also social organization and shared priorities. How did the Indus Valley society mobilize such efforts? What cultural, political, or economic imperatives drove this remarkable achievement? And what might the system tell us about the lives of ordinary people, the daily rhythms of water, waste, and hygiene that intersected with larger societal structures? Even in its preserved state, the drainage system conveys both clarity and mystery. Walking along its remnants today, one senses the careful logic and foresight embedded in every brick, every channel, every junction. Yet the motivations, the decision-making processes, and the broader significance of the system remain tantalizingly elusive. Was this purely engineering brilliance? Or does it also reflect ritualized patterns, societal values, and spiritual beliefs we have yet to fully comprehend? The Indus Valley drains challenge modern assumptions about the origins of urban planning, public health, and civic responsibility. They invite us to reconsider what we know about ancient civilizations, that innovation, foresight, and technical sophistication can emerge in ways that defy chronological and cultural expectations. And as we trace the lines of stone and brick beneath the streets of Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, one is left to wonder, what else did the Indus engineers know, plan, or understand that has been lost to time? What hidden principles, buried knowledge, or unseen structures might still lie beneath the plains, waiting to reveal the full extent of this civilization's ingenuity? In contemplating the Indus Valley drainage system, we confront the enduring tension between the tangible and the unknown. Every channel and conduit speaks of mastery over water, society, and urban life, but it also whispers questions that remain unanswered. How did such a civilization emerge, achieve such feats, and then vanish so completely from the historical record? And, perhaps most compellingly, what further marvels of engineering and understanding might still be hidden, lying quietly beneath layers of soil and sediment, waiting for the next generation of explorers to uncover their secrets? From the precise channels and hidden ingenuity of the Indus Valley drainage system, where urban planning speaks of foresight and meticulous control, our journey now carries us across continents and into the shimmering waters of the Mediterranean. Off the coast of southern Laconia, Greece, lies Pavlopetri, a city submerged beneath the waves, its streets, buildings, and tombs resting quietly beneath the Aegean Sea for nearly 5,000 years. Unlike ruins preserved on land, Pavlopetri offers a landscape that is both alien and familiar, an underwater metropolis frozen in time, inviting contemplation and mystery. Gliding above the sun-dappled seabed, the outlines of rectangular buildings emerge from the sand, connected by narrow streets and open courtyards. Foundations are visible, carved from stone, and the remains of tombs, wells, and civic structures punctuate the submerged cityscape. The water, filtered and calm, lends the ruins a dreamlike quality, as though the past has been softened by the sea itself. For archaeologists and divers alike, Pavlopetri is a portal into a Bronze Age world, remarkably preserved in 3 dimensions. Yet it is not merely its age or preservation that intrigues. It is the very circumstances of its submersion and the questions they raise. Radiocarbon dating places the city as early as 2800 BCE, making it one of the oldest known submerged cities in the world. Its streets were laid out with surprising regularity, suggesting an organized civic plan. Buildings are arranged in clusters, with thoroughfares connecting residential, ceremonial, and commercial areas. Even the water supply appears to have been managed carefully, with evidence of wells and cisterns indicating sophisticated urban planning. Scholars have marveled at how a civilization of this era achieved such coordination, building a functional city that flourished in an environment prone to seismic activity. Yet, the most compelling mystery is how and why Pavlopetri became submerged. Theories abound. Some suggest a gradual rise in sea levels over centuries, a slow encroachment that eventually rendered the city uninhabitable. Others propose tectonic activity, a sudden earthquake, fault movement, or underwater landslide, caused a rapid inundation, forcing residents to abandon the city in haste. Archaeologists point to evidence of collapsed walls and sediment deposits that hint at both gradual and sudden events, yet no definitive account explains the precise sequence of catastrophe. Was the submersion sudden enough to preserve the city in its almost pristine state, or did it occur over generations, leaving traces of human adaptation and resilience? The layout of Pavlopetri adds layers to its enigma. Streets intersect at near-perfect right angles, and some buildings appear to have been multi-storied, a remarkable achievement for the Bronze Age. Graves are situated along streets and within courtyards, yet the city lacks monumental palaces or temples of the scale seen elsewhere in the Mediterranean at the time. Could this reflect a society more focused on communal living and civic organization than on singular displays of power? Or are we missing evidence of structures that have long since been lost to erosion, tidal currents, and shifting sands? Artifacts recovered from the site add to the intrigue. Pottery shards, tools, and jewelry reveal connections to the broader Aegean trade network, suggesting Pavlopetri was not isolated but engaged in commerce with Crete, mainland Greece, and possibly beyond. Amphorae, weights, and anchors indicate an economy built on maritime exchange. Yet, despite the material evidence of trade and daily life, the social structure, governance, and cultural practices of Pavlopetri's inhabitants remain largely speculative. Who ruled this city? How did they interact with neighboring settlements? And what beliefs and rituals shaped their lives in a world now veiled by water? Speculative theories extend into the realms of climate and geology. Some researchers posit that Pavlopetri offers a cautionary tale of human vulnerability to natural forces, a city claimed by the sea long before written history. Others suggest that the city's submersion may have influenced oral traditions or myths in the wider region, stories of lost lands swallowed by water that resonate across Mediterranean cultures. Fringe ideas occasionally propose that Pavlopetri may have been deliberately abandoned or even ritually submerged, though such claims remain highly speculative. What is certain is that the city's preservation, its sudden visibility to modern science, and the mysteries of its submersion continue to capture the imagination. The human experience embedded in Pavlopetri is both palpable and elusive. One can imagine families walking the streets, merchants arranging goods, children playing in courtyards, unaware that their city would one day rest beneath waves. Wells and cisterns speak of daily routines. Tombs speak of life, death, and memory. Yet the silence of the sea preserves only outlines and fragments, leaving modern observers to reconstruct a civilization from shadows and sediment. How much of Pavlopetri's story has been lost to time, carried away by tides, currents, or centuries of sedimentation? Technological advances have revealed details that were once impossible to see. Sonar mapping, underwater photogrammetry, and 3D reconstruction allow researchers to navigate the city virtually, tracing streets and buildings as if walking above water. Still, even with these tools, questions persist. How did the inhabitants of Pavlopetri adapt to environmental pressures? What engineering knowledge enabled them to construct durable foundations in a coastal environment prone to flooding? And perhaps most haunting of all, what daily moments, decisions, and human dramas were frozen at the moment of abandonment, preserved beneath layers of sand and stone? Pavlopetri stands as a reminder of both human ingenuity and human fragility. It is a city built with skill, foresight, and planning, yet ultimately surrendered to forces beyond control: rising waters, shifting earth, and the inexorable passage of time. Every street, building, and tomb offers insight into Bronze Age life while simultaneously raising questions that cannot yet be answered. And as sunlight filters through the waves, illuminating the outlines of houses and alleys, one cannot help but wonder, how many other cities, lost to the sea or buried beneath earth, remain hidden from our eyes? What stories of human civilization lie submerged, waiting to be discovered, to challenge our understanding of the past and the forces that shape it? From the submerged streets and silent houses of Pavlopetri, where the waves have preserved the outlines of human civilization for millennia, our journey now carries us to a stark and otherworldly landscape: the cliffs and caves near the northwest shore of the Dead Sea. Here, between rugged mountains and the shimmering salt flats, a discovery was made in the mid-20th century that would forever alter our understanding of the ancient world: the Dead Sea Scrolls, a collection of texts whose age, content, and provenance continue to provoke awe, debate, and deep scholarly inquiry. The first caves of Qumran, where these scrolls were hidden, are unassuming at first glance: narrow recesses in limestone cliffs, etched by centuries of wind and erosion. Yet within their quiet darkness lay treasures of human thought, recorded on fragile parchment and papyrus, preserved in the dry, arid air of the Judean desert. These scrolls, some over 2,000 years old, contain fragments of nearly every book of the Hebrew Bible, as well as apocryphal texts, sectarian writings, and documents detailing laws, prayers, and communal practices of a people whose name is still debated, but whose presence is undeniable. The discovery of the scrolls in 1947 sparked excitement and curiosity on an unprecedented scale. Archaeologists, Bedouin shepherds, and scholars alike were drawn to the caves, each fragment a testament to the intellectual and spiritual life of a culture that flourished under Roman rule, yet whose traces had otherwise nearly vanished. The scrolls themselves are delicate, their edges brittle, the ink faded but remarkably legible. They are more than historical artifacts. They are windows into thought, law, ritual, and belief from a world poised between ancient tradition and the coming of new religious movements. Scholars have spent decades piecing together the scrolls' content and context, and yet fundamental questions remain. Who exactly produced these texts? Were they the work of a single sect, perhaps the Essenes, as some theories suggest, or were they the accumulated writings of multiple groups seeking refuge in the caves? Why were they hidden with such care, carefully rolled, sealed, and placed in jars? The act of concealment suggests urgency, fear, or foresight. But what precisely prompted this extraordinary effort to protect knowledge from destruction or confiscation? The scroll's content adds layers of intrigue. While many fragments reflect familiar biblical narratives, others are strikingly different. Variations in text, omitted passages, and previously unknown writings that offer alternative perspectives on law, ritual, and prophecy. Some scrolls contain apocalyptic visions, hymns of praise, and rules for communal life that seem at once rigorous and enigmatic. How do these texts relate to one another? Were they meant as guides for living, instruments of religious authority, or as a form of intellectual preservation for generations yet unborn? The answers are elusive, hinting at a world both deeply familiar and profoundly strange. Even the physical preservation of the scrolls raises questions. The cave's environment, dry, hot, and remote, certainly contributed to their survival, but scholars continue to investigate techniques used in their creation. The ink, meticulously applied to parchment or papyrus, has endured thousands of years, its chemical composition a mystery in itself. Were there specific methods of preparation, perhaps lost to time, that enabled these fragile documents to withstand decay? And if so, what other knowledge, now lost, might have accompanied these techniques? Speculative theories surrounding the Dead Sea Scrolls often extend beyond textual analysis. Some suggest that the scrolls encode esoteric knowledge, hidden numerology, or messages intended for future generations. Others hypothesize connections to lost libraries, secret schools, or even prophetic traditions that influenced later religious developments. While such ideas remain unverified, they underscore the profound impact of the scrolls on the imagination. Artifacts that bridge history, religion, and mystery, compelling us to ask not only who wrote them, but why and to what end. The scrolls' discovery also prompts reflection on human behavior in times of crisis. Their concealment suggests a civilization acutely aware of political and social upheaval, determined to protect its beliefs and laws from forces beyond its control. What threats did they face? Roman conquest, local conflicts, or internal schisms? And how did these pressures shape the content and arrangement of the scrolls themselves? Each fragment, each carefully inscribed line, is a testament to resilience, intellectual rigor, and perhaps fear, the human desire to preserve thought even when survival is uncertain. Moreover, the Dead Sea Scrolls invite contemplation of continuity and loss. Some texts reaffirm traditions that would shape Judaism and indirectly Christianity. Others reflect practices, interpretations, and ideas that have vanished from the historical record. They remind us that history is never a linear narrative, but a mosaic of surviving voices, fragmentary evidence, and unanswered questions. And yet, despite decades of study, scholars are still discovering new fragments, reevaluating interpretations, and uncovering connections that reshape our understanding of the past. As we stand at the edge of the Dead Sea, gazing at the cliffs that once hid these fragile manuscripts, we are confronted by both knowledge and mystery. The scrolls speak across millennia, offering insight into the spiritual, intellectual, and communal life of a vanished world, while simultaneously withholding answers to some of the most profound questions. How much of their story remains hidden, preserved in yet undiscovered caves? What other texts, perhaps even older or more radical, might lie quietly waiting beneath rock and sand? And how does the survival of these scrolls shape our understanding of human resilience, thought, and devotion? The Dead Sea Scrolls are more than relics. They are reminders that the past is layered, incomplete, and full of secrets. Each fragment, each faded word, invites us to ponder the ingenuity, fear, and devotion of those who produced them. They are a bridge between worlds, ancient and modern, known and unknown, revealed and concealed. And as sunlight dances across the desert cliffs and salt flats, we are left with the quiet, compelling sense that the scrolls, like the civilizations that produced them, still have stories to tell, stories that may forever challenge our understanding of history, faith, and the enduring human quest to preserve knowledge. As the camera glides across the vast, sun-bleached sands of Luxor, the colossal silhouette of the Karnak temple complex slowly emerges from the haze. Amid the sprawling labyrinth of pylons, courtyards, and sanctuaries, the obelisks stand like sentinels of a forgotten age. Slender, soaring monuments of red granite, their surfaces etched with hieroglyphs that have survived thousands of years. They pierce the sky, casting elongated shadows that shift subtly with the sun, and one cannot help but feel a quiet awe in their presence. Here, in the heart of ancient Thebes, history and mystery intertwine in ways that continue to challenge modern understanding. The Temple of Karnak is not merely a collection of ruins. It is a sprawling testament to human ambition and devotion. And among its many wonders, the obelisks are perhaps the most enigmatic. Carved from single blocks of stone, some weighing over 300 tons, they were transported across the Nile and erected with remarkable precision. How did the Egyptians, thousands of years ago, manage such a feat without cranes or modern machinery? Scholars have devoted decades to answering this question, proposing elaborate systems of sledges, lubricated ramps, and coordinated labor. Yet the sheer scale of these undertakings continues to astound. Each obelisk was not only a feat of engineering, but also a vessel of symbolism. Dedicated to the sun god Ra, their towering forms were designed to catch the first rays of dawn, bathing the inscriptions in light. These hieroglyphs tell stories of pharaohs, victories, and religious devotion. But as we examine them more closely, other questions arise. The precision of the carvings, the perfect taper of the stone, the remarkable alignment along sacred axes. These details suggest knowledge and skills that, in some ways, remain difficult to fully explain. How did the ancient builders achieve such mathematical and geometric perfection without what we would consider advanced tools? The largest of these monuments, erected by Queen Hatshepsut, stands as a singular achievement of human determination. It towers nearly 30 meters into the sky, a single piece of stone quarried from Aswan and transported more than 800 kilometers downstream along the Nile. Conventional theories suggest barges and ropes, but when one imagines the logistics, the sheer manpower, the coordination, the precision required to set it upright without modern equipment, the story begins to feel almost mythic. And yet, unlike many monuments of antiquity, These obelisks have survived with minimal structural damage, their forms enduring millennia of shifting sands, seasonal floods, and human interference. As the sun shifts over the horizon, shadows play along the surfaces, and some of the inscriptions seem almost to shimmer, revealing their ancient messages in fleeting light. Here, too, speculation thrives. Fringe researchers point to unusual markings that some claim are not purely decorative or linguistic, suggesting the possibility of lost knowledge encoded in the stone. Others argue that the alignment of certain obelisks with celestial bodies, sun, stars, or solstices, indicates a sophisticated understanding of astronomy far beyond what mainstream history credits to ancient Egypt. Was there an advanced knowledge of the cosmos embedded in these stones, a message intended for future generations? Equally puzzling are reports of mysterious acoustics around certain obelisks. Archaeologists have noted that standing near particular stones produces faint resonances, as if the granite itself is vibrating in subtle ways. Could this be an incidental property of the material, or was sound intentionally incorporated into the design, perhaps for ceremonial or ritualistic purposes? And then there are the tales, passed down through centuries, of hidden chambers or unrecorded inscriptions still waiting to be discovered. Despite extensive studies, much of Karnak remains unexcavated, leaving the door open to secrets that might rewrite our understanding of these monuments. Some have even speculated that the obelisks served a purpose beyond the spiritual or ceremonial, that their precise construction hints at a lost technology or forgotten methodology. Could the ancients have tapped into techniques now lost to time? Methods that allowed them to manipulate immense stones with an ease modern engineers struggle to replicate? Or were these purely the result of human ingenuity, honed to perfection through centuries of trial and labor? The truth remains tantalizingly out of reach. The surrounding landscape adds another layer to the mystery. Karnak is aligned with other sacred sites along the Nile, forming a web of spiritual geography that some researchers believe mirrors celestial patterns. Was this intentional, a way to link the earth and the heavens in a sacred network? Or is it coincidence, a byproduct of religious convention and the natural course of the river? Every angle, every alignment seems to carry a hidden message, as though the stones themselves are asking the modern observer to look deeper. Walking among these obelisks, one senses a connection to a time when the human imagination dared to reach for the divine. They are silent witnesses to centuries of civilization, yet they also provoke questions that remain unanswered. The stones have been there for thousands of years, weathering storms, political upheaval, and the relentless passage of time. And yet, in their enduring majesty, they continue to evoke curiosity, wonder, and a quiet unease. What did the ancient Egyptians truly know? And how much of their knowledge has been lost beneath the sands of time? As we step back and gaze upon the obelisks of Karnak, their shadows stretching across the temple floor, we are left with more questions than answers. These towering monoliths remind us that, even in the age of modern science and archaeology, some mysteries endure. The obelisks do not shout their secrets. They whisper them, waiting for the patient and the persistent to listen. And perhaps, somewhere in the precise angles and silent inscriptions, the next revelation still lies hidden, waiting for discovery. From the dense, humid lowlands of Veracruz in Mexico emerges a story that challenges our understanding of early civilization in the Americas. Nestled amid fields that have been tilled for centuries, the Cascajal block, an unassuming slab of serpentine stone, rests quietly, its surface etched with symbols that seem to whisper across the millennia. At first glance, it appears simple, almost ordinary. Yet as sunlight traces the grooves of its carvings, one begins to sense that this is no ordinary artifact. Here, in this humid, almost timeless landscape, lies a fragment of a world that defies easy explanation. Discovered in 1999 in a site associated with the Olmec civilization, the Cascajal block measures roughly 36 by 21 centimeters, and yet its significance looms far larger than its modest size suggests. The Olmecs, often regarded as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, flourished between 1200 and 400 BCE, yet very little is definitively known about their written language, or if they had one at all. And it is this block, with its 62 carefully incised symbols, that appears to challenge long-held assumptions. Some scholars argue that these marks may represent the earliest known writing system in the Americas, predating other documented scripts by centuries. The carvings themselves are enigmatic. They depict shapes that resemble plants, animals, and human features, yet they do not correspond directly to any known Olmec iconography. Some symbols seem repeated, suggesting a structure, perhaps even a form of syntax. Could this be a record of commerce, genealogy, or ritual practice? Or is it a system of communication whose meaning has been lost entirely to time? Theories abound, but the block offers no definitive answers. Its surface is smooth, its lines deliberate, indicating an intelligence and purpose behind its creation that is undeniable, but inscrutable. The context of its discovery adds another layer to the mystery. Unlike the grand monuments, colossal heads, and jade figurines for which the Olmecs are famous, the Cascajal block was found buried in a low mound of clay intermixed with fragments of everyday pottery. It was not protected in a ceremonial structure, nor was it displayed in a public space. What then was its purpose? Was it a tool for teaching, a ledger of sorts, or a sacred object meant for private use? Archaeologists are divided, and the lack of comparable artifacts only deepens the enigma. The craftsmanship is remarkable. The incisions are precise, suggesting a steady hand and a practiced technique. The stone itself is dense and heavy, yet portable, a deliberate choice perhaps, allowing it to be transported, studied, or hidden. And yet, despite its apparent practicality, there is an elegance to the carvings, a subtle artistry that hints at a culture both sophisticated and deeply attuned to symbolism. What does it mean when a society invests time and effort into encoding ideas in stone, only to leave the meanings opaque to posterity? Some researchers have proposed that the block represents a proto-writing system, an experimental step toward fully developed script. If this is true, it would dramatically reshape our understanding of literacy in ancient Mesoamerica, suggesting that the Olmecs were experimenting with recording complex ideas centuries before other known civilizations in the region. Others remain skeptical, arguing that the symbols may be purely artistic, ritualistic, or mnemonic, intended to trigger memory or imagination rather than to communicate precise information. Yet the sheer repetition and apparent ordering of the symbols resist such a simple interpretation. Then there are the more speculative theories. Fringe researchers suggest the block might encode astronomical knowledge, a calendar system, or even a map of some sort, drawing parallels to the way other ancient cultures inscribed vital information into durable mediums. Could the Olmecs have possessed a system of observation and recording that we have yet to recognize? And if so, what might remain hidden, buried beneath layers of soil or forgotten in the recesses of time? Each new interpretation raises further questions, expanding the mystery rather than narrowing it. The very existence of the Cascajal block challenges the traditional narrative of early American civilizations. The Olmecs are already celebrated for their monumental artistry, the colossal heads, the intricate jade masks, the ceremonial platforms. But a written language, however nascent, adds a new dimension to our understanding of their sophistication. How could a culture that left so few written records have developed such a complex system of symbols? And if other examples existed, why have so few survived? The block stands as a solitary testament, a single voice echoing from a civilization that otherwise speaks to us largely through stone and artifact. As we trace our fingers along its grooves, one cannot help but sense a dialogue across the ages. The block does not reveal its secrets easily. It invites observation, study, and speculation. It reminds us that the past is not always orderly or complete, and that knowledge can be lost as easily as it is created. Each symbol seems to pulse with possibility, hinting at ideas that may never be fully understood. What did the Olmecs intend to communicate? Was it a message to their own time, or a signal for a distant future waiting to be deciphered? Standing before the Cascajal block, one is struck by its quiet persistence. Unlike the towering obelisks of Karnak or the vast pyramids of Egypt, it is small, intimate, and profoundly human. And yet it carries a weight that transcends its physical form, a weight of curiosity, of intellect, and of unanswered questions. In the humid air of Veracruz, among the scattered remnants of a civilization that flourished over 2 millennia ago, it continues to confound and inspire. The Cascajal block remains a mystery not only of the Olmecs, but of human history itself, a puzzle carved in stone, still whispering across the centuries, asking us to ponder what else may yet be hidden, waiting silently for discovery. From the quiet halls of the Topkapi Palace in Istanbul, a fragile parchment lies behind glass, its surface yellowed with age yet etched with an astonishing clarity. This is the Piri Reis Map, a world map drawn in 1513 by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis. At first glance, it appears as a typical Renaissance-era nautical chart, adorned with compass roses, illustrations of ships, and coastlines traced in meticulous detail. But as one's eyes linger, a deeper mystery begins to emerge, one that has captivated historians, explorers, and skeptics for nearly a century. The map covers the western coasts of Europe and North Africa with remarkable accuracy, yet it extends to the lands of the New World, depicting the eastern coast of South America with a precision that seems, even by modern standards, impressive. What makes the Piri Reis Map particularly intriguing is not just its depiction of the known world, but the sources Piri Reis himself cited. In his accompanying notes, he claimed to have compiled the map from over 20 older charts and maps, some of which dated back to the age of Alexander the Great. He explicitly mentions drawing on Portuguese, Arab, and even legendary maps that have since vanished. But the enigma deepens when we examine the map's depiction of the southern regions. Certain interpretations suggest that the coastline of Antarctica is represented, and not merely as a frozen, uncharted expanse, but as it might have appeared before the ice sheets fully covered it. Geological evidence confirms that some coastal areas of Antarctica were ice-free thousands of years ago, long before humans are believed to have explored the region. Could it be that the Piri Reis Map preserves knowledge from a lost era, passed down through generations of seafarers and preserved in fragments, only to reappear on a 16th century chart? Mainstream historians argue that the map is simply the product of meticulous compilation, based on careful observation and cross-referencing of previous charts. They point out that early European and Mediterranean maps often contained surprising accuracy in some areas, even if overall methods were inconsistent. Yet skeptics and alternative researchers continue to be drawn to the map's anomalies. How could a man in the early 1500s, with no modern surveying tools, chart coastlines with such apparent precision? Why does the map suggest a geographic knowledge that predates known explorations by centuries, if not millennia? The Piri Reis Map is also striking in its attention to detail. Mountains, rivers, islands, and even certain interior features are rendered with care, suggesting that Piri Reis, and the maps he used, did not merely record coastal outlines, but attempted to convey a fuller understanding of the lands themselves. The map's artistry is inseparable from its function, blending the practical with the symbolic, the navigational with the almost mystical. It is a reminder that cartography, in the early modern world, was as much about interpretation and knowledge as it was about observation. Speculation has flourished around the map for decades. Some propose that it is evidence of lost civilizations, precursors to known human history that possessed advanced knowledge of geography and navigation. Others suggest that it reflects ancient seafaring voyages, perhaps even transoceanic contact long before Columbus. Could the map be a fragment of a much larger body of knowledge, a hidden archive of human exploration now lost to time? These questions, though provocative, remain unanswered, for the map itself offers no explanations beyond Piri Reis's brief annotations. Even the technical execution of the map raises questions. The way certain coastlines are projected, the apparent scaling of distances, and the unusual orientation of certain land masses hint at methods of cartography that were sophisticated and, in some ways, unexpected for the period. Were these techniques borrowed from earlier civilizations, perhaps from the Greeks, Phoenicians, or even cultures now forgotten? Or were they the result of careful trial and observation, honed over generations of mariners' experience? Each line and curve on the parchment seems to invite contemplation, a puzzle encoded in ink and patience. The map also serves as a bridge between human curiosity and the unknown. Unlike monumental structures or isolated artifacts, it is a functional object, intended for navigation, travel, and understanding of the world. Yet, paradoxically, it opens more questions than it answers. How much knowledge was lost when ancient maps and charts disappeared, burned, or were hidden away? How much of what we consider discovery in the age of exploration was in fact rediscovery? And what secrets might still lie in the archives of the world, waiting to be uncovered by those willing to look beyond the obvious? Gazing at the Piri Reis Map, one feels a connection to the explorers and thinkers who came before, yet also a sense of humility. The world it portrays is at once familiar and strange, precise and elusive. Every coastline, every notation, every island is a testament to human curiosity, a reminder that knowledge is both cumulative and fragile, always at the mercy of time. And in that fragility lies the enduring fascination of the map. It is a relic of an age when the boundaries of the known world were constantly being challenged, yet it also hints at a deeper, older understanding that may have been lost or forgotten. Ultimately, the Piri Reis Map remains an invitation to wonder. It asks us to reconsider the history of exploration, to imagine voyages that might have taken place long before the documented era of discovery, and to contemplate the ingenuity and persistence of those who sought to chart the unknown. Even today, as modern satellite imagery provides an almost total view of Earth, the map retains a quiet authority, a whisper of knowledge that predates instruments, compasses, and the convenience of digital mapping. What other secrets might remain encoded in the margins of history, waiting for a careful eye to discern them? The map does not provide answers. It simply reminds us that the past often holds more questions than the present can explain. Deep in the heart of Egypt's vast western desert, far from the bustling Nile Valley and the familiar monuments of antiquity, lies a hidden grotto that seems almost suspended outside of time. The entrance to the Cave of the Swimmers is unassuming, a narrow fissure in the limestone cliffs near the Gilf Kebir Plateau. But stepping inside is like crossing a threshold into a lost world. The walls are adorned with hundreds of faint, ochre-red figures, their shapes at once simple and profoundly enigmatic. Among them, the most striking are the so-called swimmers, human forms captured in fluid, graceful motion, as if frozen mid-stroke. traversing invisible waters across the rock face. Discovered in 1933 by the Hungarian explorer Laszlo Almasi, the cave immediately captivated scholars and adventurers alike. The paintings are estimated to be between 6,000 and 10,000 years old, dating to a time when this desert was not an arid expanse of sand, but a landscape dotted with lakes and rivers, home to wildlife and human settlements. The swimmers, in their suspended motion, seem to bear witness to a climate long vanished, hinting at a verdant past that contrasts sharply with the present desolation. Their gestures are deliberate, expressive, arms and legs extended, bodies angled as if propelled by currents. What story were these figures meant to tell? Were they simply representations of daily life, or did they hold a deeper symbolic significance? The context of the paintings deepens their mystery. Among the swimmers are depictions of cattle, giraffes, antelope, and even felines, fauna that no longer roams this arid land. Other figures suggest communal activities, hunting, ritual dances, or social gatherings. Yet the swimmers themselves seem unique, not tied to hunting or herding, but to an aquatic world long disappeared. The choice to depict humans in motion, swimming, floating, or diving, raises immediate questions. How did the people of the Neolithic Sahara conceive of water in this way? And why was this particular activity deemed worthy of eternalization on stone walls, in a place that even today feels remote and inaccessible? Mainstream archaeologists generally interpret the paintings as reflections of life during a greener Sahara, part of the so-called African humid period, when the region supported lakes, rivers, and a rich biodiversity. The depiction of swimming might be literal, representing a daily activity or ritual connected to water, or symbolic, a metaphor for movement, survival, or transition. Yet, despite decades of study, no definitive explanation has emerged. The figures resist simple categorization, their fluidity suggesting a sophistication of thought and observation that challenges assumptions about early Saharan cultures. The cave itself adds another layer of intrigue. Hidden high within a cliff face, its entrance is accessible only by careful climbing, suggesting that the artists went to considerable effort to reach this space. Was the location chosen for practical reasons, such as preservation from wind and sand, or did it serve a ritualistic purpose, a sacred enclave where the community could record visions of life and water? The inaccessibility raises further questions about the cultural or spiritual importance of the site. These paintings were meant to endure, and endure they have, weathering millennia in near-perfect preservation. Some interpretations venture into the more speculative. Fringe researchers have suggested that the swimmers represent not only the presence of water, but perhaps an advanced awareness of hydrodynamics or symbolic language that encoded knowledge about climate, migration, or even spiritual journeys. Could the flowing movements of the figures indicate an understanding of motion, resistance, or balance? Were they early attempts to communicate ideas about the human body, its interaction with the environment, or cycles of life and death? Though these theories remain conjectural, they reflect the undeniable sense of sophistication conveyed by the cave's artistry. The human figures themselves are strikingly varied. Some are elongated and stylized, others compact and dynamic. Some appear in groups, almost interacting, while others float solitarily across the stone surface. The lack of written language in this context forces us to rely on visual interpretation alone, making every brushstroke, every line, a clue to a culture whose thoughts we can only partially glimpse. Were these swimmers merely illustrative, or did they serve as mnemonic devices, reminders of stories, rituals, or collective memory? And if the latter, how much has been irretrievably lost to time, leaving only faint traces on limestone walls? Even the pigments used in the cave provoke curiosity. Red ochre, iron oxide, and other natural minerals were carefully applied, their tones and textures chosen to endure centuries of desert heat, wind, and sandstorms. The deliberate selection of materials, the composition of figures, and the apparent narrative sequence all suggest intentionality. These are not random marks. They are communication, messages encoded in motion and form, and yet, like many ancient expressions, they remain partially enigmatic, offering insight while withholding full understanding. Standing before the Cave of the Swimmers today, one is struck by the intimacy of the experience. Unlike massive temples or sprawling cities, this is a private space, a window into the imagination and life of a small community, or perhaps an individual, in a distant past. The swimmers do not shout their story. They glide silently across the stone, inviting contemplation. They remind us that human expression is as old as civilization itself, and that even in isolation, humans sought to capture their environment, their experiences, and perhaps their dreams. What did the swimmers mean to the people who painted them? Was this a literal depiction of daily life in a vanished landscape, a symbolic journey, or a combination of both? And what other stories remain hidden in cliffs and caves, waiting for someone patient enough to find them? The Cave of the Swimmers, suspended between past and present, water and desert, known and unknowable, continues to beckon, whispering a timeless question. How much of our human story is still submerged, waiting to be discovered? From the rugged coastlines of the northern Peloponnesus, where the mountains meet the sea in a dramatic sweep of cliffs and inlets, whispers of a lost city linger beneath the waves. The story of Helike begins in the mists of antiquity, a flourishing Greek city of temples, marketplaces, and vibrant civic life, now remembered only in fragmentary texts and submerged ruins. For centuries, it was celebrated as a center of trade, religion, and culture, a city revered in the classical world and feared for its sudden disappearance, a disappearance that would come to inspire myths, cautionary tales, and speculation across generations. Helike's fate was recorded by ancient historians such as Pausanias and Strabo. In 373 BCE, according to these accounts, a catastrophic earthquake shook the region, followed by a series of devastating tsunamis that swallowed the city almost entirely. The earth reportedly opened and the sea rushed in, consuming homes, temples, and public squares in a matter of hours. Eyewitnesses wrote of the city vanishing beneath the waters, leaving behind only whispers of its streets and sacred precincts. Yet, for all the detail of these historical accounts, the physical location of Helike remained elusive for over 2 millennia, a city almost entirely erased from memory. The mystery begins with this erasure. Unlike Pompeii or Herculaneum, which were preserved beneath ash and rubble, Helike disappeared beneath layers of silt, sediment, and the shifting currents of the Gulf of Corinth. Archaeologists in the modern era have identified possible locations near the modern village of Eretini, using core samples and geophysical surveys to reveal submerged foundations, pottery fragments, and remnants of walls. But the city is not yet fully exposed, and much of what is known comes from indirect evidence, leaving gaps filled by interpretation, imagination, and hypothesis. How could such a prominent city, so central to Greek history, vanish so completely? And why does the underwater landscape still yield secrets in such uneven, tantalizing fragments? The ruins themselves are enigmatic. Foundations of temples hint at monumental architecture, while scattered columns and amphora fragments speak to a thriving civic life. Submerged streets appear intermittently, their angles suggesting planning and organization consistent with other Greek polis. Yet the irregular patterns, the layers of sediment, and the continuing shifts in the sea floor complicate attempts at reconstruction. The city seems almost alive, resisting static interpretation, shifting under centuries of tectonic activity, tides, and floods. Was Helike's destruction solely natural, Or were there human factors, abandoned dikes, mismanaged canals, or other environmental changes that amplified the catastrophe? Beyond the physical evidence, Helike occupies a space between history and legend. Ancient texts speak not only of destruction but of divine judgment, suggesting the city was submerged as a punishment from the gods. Pindar and other poets wove morality into the narrative, warning that the pride of mortals could provoke the wrath of the divine. Modern researchers approach these accounts cautiously, yet the resonance is undeniable. Helike has become both a historical and a symbolic enigma, a cautionary tale about the fragility of human endeavors in the face of natural forces. Could there be elements of truth embedded in myth that we have yet to uncover? Speculation deepens when considering the city's cultural significance. Helike was closely associated with the cult of Poseidon, the god of the sea and earthquakes, and some scholars suggest that its sudden submersion may have inspired early Greek conceptions of divine power over the natural world. Was Helike merely unlucky in its geography? Or was its destruction amplified by the tectonic instability of the Gulf of Corinth, a region prone to seismic activity even today? And if so, what other ancient settlements may have succumbed to similar fate, leaving only stories behind? Modern exploration has only partially answered these questions. Excavations and underwater surveys have revealed street grids, foundations of temples, and artifacts such as bronze statues and pottery, yet the scale of the city remains uncertain. Each discovery raises new puzzles. Why are certain structures preserved while others are completely lost? How did the city's inhabitants respond to the initial tremors? Were some able to escape, or did the suddenness of the catastrophe leave few survivors? And what untold stories lie still buried beneath layers of sand, clay, and centuries of sediment? There is also a human dimension to Helike's mystery. The city was not merely a collection of stones and artifacts. It was a home, a center of culture, trade, and human aspiration. Imagining life in Helike, its bustling agora, the sounds of market cries, the voices of priests and citizens, makes its sudden disappearance all the more haunting. The submersion of Helike transforms it from a historical fact into a meditation on impermanence, a reminder that even thriving civilizations can vanish almost without trace. As modern technology allows archaeologists to probe beneath the seabed, glimpses of Helike reemerge, yet the city remains tantalizingly incomplete. Every new sonar scan, every fragment of pottery, every submerged wall suggests both what was and what remains hidden. The city seems to demand patience and careful attention, teasing observers with fragments of its story while withholding the full narrative. In this way, Helike embodies the tension between knowledge and mystery, between what can be documented and what must be imagined. Looking across the Gulf of Corinth today, with the waves lapping silently over the buried ruins, one is struck by a profound stillness. The city lies beneath the waters, at once lost and present, tangible and elusive. Its story, like the ancient swimmers in the desert or the civilizations mapped in forgotten charts, reminds us that history is often fragile, shaped by forces both natural and human, and that the past retains its power to surprise. What else might be hidden beneath the shifting sands and waters of our world? Helike does not offer answers. It asks questions, inviting us to ponder not only the history we know, but the countless stories that remain submerged, waiting for discovery. As the sun rises over the flat, arid plains of southern Iraq, the remains of ancient cities emerge from the sands like ghosts of a long-forgotten world. Among these remnants, the Ziggurat of Ur rises with a solemn authority, a massive terraced structure of mud brick and baked brick, its geometric form casting long shadows across the desert floor. Once a center of religious, political, and economic life in Sumer, this monumental stepped temple evokes both awe and mystery, a testament to human ambition and devotion that continues to captivate archaeologists and historians alike. The ziggurat was dedicated to Nana, the moon god, reflecting the profound influence of celestial observation on the spiritual and civic life of the Sumerians. Its core, composed of mud bricks, rises in 3 steep levels, each step narrowing as it ascends, culminating in what would have been a shrine at the summit. Though largely eroded over millennia, the sheer scale and precision of its construction remain impressive. Estimates suggest the original height may have exceeded 30 meters, a remarkable achievement for a society that relied on manual labor and rudimentary tools. How did the builders of Ur coordinate such an immense project, and what motivated their relentless effort to reach toward the heavens? The location of Ur itself amplifies the intrigue. Situated near the confluence of the Euphrates and Tigris rivers, the city thrived as a hub of trade and culture, connecting distant regions of Mesopotamia. The ziggurat, at the heart of the city, served as a physical and spiritual anchor, a bridge between earth and sky, mortal and divine. Yet the purpose of the ziggurats may extend beyond what is recorded in texts or revealed through archaeology. Were they simply temples, or did they also serve as repositories of knowledge, astronomical observatories, or centers for secretive rites now lost to time? The engineering behind the ziggurat continues to provoke both admiration and puzzlement. Constructing such a massive, elevated platform required not only immense labor, but also sophisticated understanding of structural integrity and materials. Layers of mud brick, carefully bonded with bitumen, supported enormous weight, while terraces provided stability and access. Some researchers speculate that the ziggurats functioned as both sacred spaces and practical platforms, allowing priests to observe the movements of stars and planets. Could there be hidden knowledge encoded in the alignment and orientation of the structure, a celestial map waiting to be deciphered? The mysteries extend to the rituals that may have unfolded atop the ziggurat. Ancient texts describe offerings, ceremonies, and processions, yet the specifics are tantalizingly vague. Did the elevated terraces serve to elevate the spiritual experience, bringing priests and worshippers closer to the divine? Or were they stages for performances, displays of power, or astronomical measurements critical to the Sumerian calendar and agricultural planning? The answers remain elusive, hidden in the interplay between myth, ritual, and the archaeological record. There is also the enduring question of the ziggurat's survival. Unlike stone monuments elsewhere, Ur's ziggurat was primarily constructed of mud brick, a material vulnerable to erosion and the shifting sands of time. That any portion remains at all is remarkable, suggesting not only the skill of the original builders, but also a cultural reverence that preserved the site through centuries of upheaval, conquest, and natural disaster. Yet much of its original form is lost, and the fragments that remain tease the imagination. Where were the ceremonial chambers, the stairways to the heavens, and the sacred relics that once occupied the summit? Speculation grows when considering parallels with other ziggurats and monumental structures across Mesopotamia and beyond. Some have suggested that these stepped temples were designed according to principles lost to modern understanding, encoding mathematical, astronomical, or even mystical knowledge. Could the Sumerians have possessed techniques or insights that enabled them to create structures with symbolic resonance, aligning earthly construction with cosmic order? Or were these purely practical and religious edifices, elevated only in ambition and scale? The tension between function and symbolism fuels a persistent sense of mystery. The ziggurat's enduring allure is also amplified by its place in the human imagination. Scholars, travelers, and explorers have long been drawn to Ur, fascinated by the intersection of the monumental and the enigmatic. As we stand today on the wind-swept plains, the terraces rise like echoes of a past civilization, inviting reflection on the people who built them, lived under their shadow, and vanished into history. What drove these early architects to reach so high? What thoughts, prayers, or calculations guided each layer of brick? Even as modern archaeology sheds light on Sumerian society, its writing, commerce, and urban planning, the ziggurats retain a dimension that resists full comprehension. They are physical embodiments of ambition and belief, yet they also hold unanswered questions about human ingenuity, the intersection of knowledge and spirituality, and the limits of our understanding of ancient civilizations. The Ziggurat of Ur, in its solemn majesty, stands as both a monument and a mystery, a reminder that even in the earliest chapters of recorded history, humans sought to touch the divine, to measure the cosmos, and to leave a mark that might endure for millennia. Looking across the desert toward the crumbling terraces, one is left with a sense of awe and humility. The ziggurat rises not only as a structure of mud and brick, but as a question etched in time. How much of ancient knowledge, ritual, and wisdom remains buried beneath layers of sand, waiting for discovery? The mysteries of Ur are not merely in what has survived, but in what has been lost, and in that tension lies a quiet, enduring invitation to explore, to wonder, and to ponder the limits of what we can know about the world our ancestors left behind. In a quiet, climate-controlled archive in Yale University's Beinecke Rare Book and Manuscript Library, a small, unassuming codex rests beneath protective glass. Its worn vellum pages are filled with an elegant yet utterly alien script, curling and looping in patterns that suggest structure but defy comprehension. This is the Voynich Manuscript, a book that has confounded scholars, cryptographers, linguists, and historians for over a century. At first glance, it appears almost whimsical: floral illustrations of impossible plants, intricate cosmological diagrams, and enigmatic figures. But closer inspection reveals a complexity that is as beguiling as it is perplexing. The manuscript is named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish antiquarian who acquired it in 1912, but its origins stretch much further back, likely to the early 15th century. Carbon dating places the vellum around 1404 to 1438, situating it in a time of great intellectual ferment in Europe, yet the script, language, and illustrations appear utterly unique. No known alphabet, no documented language, and no recorded cipher matches the patterns within its pages. Each character is meticulously repeated, suggesting deliberate construction, yet no translation has ever been definitively confirmed. What purpose could such a text serve, and who would go to such lengths to create something so elaborate, yet so impenetrable? The illustrations deepen the mystery. Across the manuscript, fantastical plants stretch across the pages, some resembling known herbs and flowers, others entirely imaginary. There are depictions of cosmological systems, star maps, and circular diagrams that hint at a sophisticated understanding of astronomy or astrology. Perhaps most curiously, the manuscript contains images of human figures, often female, engaged in obscure rituals or submerged in pools of water, their actions enigmatic and their symbolism obscure. What knowledge or worldview could have inspired such imagery? And why pair it with a script no one has ever conclusively decoded? Scholars have approached the Voynich manuscript from multiple angles. Linguists have tried to find patterns in the text, using frequency analysis and modern computational techniques, while cryptographers, some of them veterans of wartime code-breaking, have attempted to uncover a cipher. Yet the manuscript resists explanation. Some propose that it is an elaborate hoax, a work of artistic play designed to confound or amuse. Others argue that it may represent an as-yet undiscovered language, a lost system of communication developed for ritual, medicinal, or scientific purposes. Each page seems to straddle the line between sense and nonsense, structure and chaos. Theories abound, drifting between the plausible and the extraordinary. Some researchers suggest that the manuscript encodes alchemical knowledge or medical recipes. Its bizarre plants perhaps representing herbal remedies that are now lost to time. Others point to the cosmological diagrams, speculating that the codex may contain an early map of the stars, or a representation of human anatomy intertwined with spiritual beliefs. More fringe interpretations propose that the manuscript reflects knowledge from unknown civilizations or secret societies, passed down in a symbolic code designed to remain incomprehensible to outsiders. The truth, if it exists, remains tantalizingly out of reach. Adding to the intrigue is the manuscript's history of ownership and movement. Over the centuries, it passed through the hands of collectors, alchemists, and nobility, each intrigued by its apparent importance yet ultimately unable to unlock its secrets. Marginalia in later pages show evidence of study and annotation, yet even these notes cannot shed light on the script itself. The Voynich Manuscript, it seems, was always meant to be partially concealed, a puzzle as much as a text, leaving generations of observers to wonder at its purpose. Even its physical construction invites curiosity. The parchment is of high quality, the ink carefully applied, and the illustrations meticulously colored. Every page demonstrates skill, care, and intentionality. This was not a casual project. It was a deliberate, labor-intensive creation. Why invest so much effort in something that defies comprehension? Was it a secret repository of knowledge, a spiritual tool, a coded scientific treatise, or an artistic expression of ideas that cannot be rendered in ordinary language? The manuscript seems to ask these very questions of anyone who opens its pages. Despite advances in technology, including artificial intelligence and statistical analysis, the manuscript retains an aura of mystery. Patterns emerge in the text, yet the meanings remain elusive. Even the simplest assumption, that it encodes a natural language, has yet to be proven. Each attempted translation, each theory, highlights both the brilliance and the obscurity of the work, reinforcing the sense that the manuscript is more than the sum of its parts. It is simultaneously tangible and inscrutable, a window into a mind, or perhaps many minds, that existed centuries ago, yet remains largely beyond our reach. Standing before the Voynich manuscript today, one is struck not only by its enigma, but by the human impulse it represents, the desire to understand, to record, to communicate, and perhaps to conceal. It is a reminder that knowledge is not always linear or complete, that even in periods of immense creativity and discovery, certain ideas may resist translation across time. The manuscript embodies both the possibilities of human ingenuity and the limits of human comprehension. What was the Voynich manuscript meant to convey, and to whom? Was it an earnest attempt at recording forgotten knowledge or an elaborate intellectual game? Could it contain insights lost to history, waiting for someone perceptive enough to decode them? Or is its true purpose deliberately elusive, a reminder that some mysteries are meant to endure? The manuscript does not offer answers. It merely invites reflection, speculation, and wonder, an enduring puzzle that continues to challenge our understanding of language, knowledge, and the past. Beneath the sun-drenched waves off the rugged shores of the Greek island of Antikythera, a diver in 1900 stumbled upon a wreck that would change our understanding of ancient technology. Among the corroded amphorae and scattered relics of a Roman-era ship lay a bronze artifact, fragmented and encrusted with centuries of sediment and marine growth. At first glance, it seemed unremarkable, a corroded piece of metal, heavy and intricate, but closer inspection revealed a level of sophistication that astonished scholars. This is the Antikythera Mechanism, often described as the world's first analog computer, a device that seems to anticipate the technological achievements of the modern era by more than a millennium. The mechanism consists of at least 30 interlocking bronze gears, meticulously crafted and arranged to track celestial cycles, predict eclipses, and chart the motions of the sun, moon, and planets. The craftsmanship is staggering. Each gear was cut with precise ratios, allowing the device to model astronomical phenomena with remarkable accuracy. For a civilization often celebrated for philosophy, architecture, and art, the Antikythera Mechanism suggests a depth of scientific understanding that was previously unimagined. How did the ancient Greeks develop such sophisticated mechanical knowledge? And how could such a device appear in a period otherwise thought to be technologically rudimentary? Historical analysis places the creation of the mechanism around the 2nd century BCE, possibly within the intellectual centers of Rhodes or Athens. It reflects knowledge of Babylonian astronomical cycles and Greek mathematical ingenuity, yet the level of mechanical execution is extraordinary. Scholars have marveled at the device's complexity, noting that comparable technology did not reappear until the European clockmaking renaissance over 1,000 years later. Was this a unique artifact, a singular marvel of ingenuity? Or was it part of a broader, now lost tradition of mechanical science? The artifact itself is mesmerizing. Its surviving fragments reveal inscriptions in Greek, detailing astronomical phenomena, instructions for use, and explanatory notes. These are not casual markings. They are a careful attempt to encode knowledge, to translate celestial observations into a portable, functional instrument. The device could predict eclipses, track lunar phases, and even model the irregular orbit of the moon, the so-called lunar anomaly, a problem that confounded mathematicians for centuries. For an artifact of its time, it is astonishingly precise. How much observational knowledge was required to construct such a machine? And how was that knowledge transmitted to a craftsman capable of translating theory into moving gears? Speculation has often ventured into the extraordinary. Some researchers have suggested that the Antikythera Mechanism represents the peak of a forgotten technological tradition, lost to history in the upheavals of the Roman conquests and the decline of classical learning. Others propose that similar devices may have existed elsewhere, unrecorded or destroyed, hinting at a world of mechanical experimentation we can only imagine. Could there have been workshops devoted to mechanical engineering, producing instruments designed to map the cosmos with bronze and ingenuity? And if so, why did such technology vanish, leaving behind only fragments and references? The context of its discovery adds another layer to the mystery. The mechanism was found on a shipwreck among ordinary cargo, suggesting it was transported for a practical purpose, perhaps as a prized instrument for study or navigation. Yet the sophistication of the device implies that it was not intended for casual use. It was an object of knowledge and precision, a bridge between observation and prediction. Did the owner understand its full potential? Or was it a symbol of intellectual achievement, revered more for its complexity than its practical application? Modern analysis has revealed even more remarkable features. X-ray imaging and 3D modeling have allowed researchers to reconstruct gear trains and hypothesize additional functions, revealing an instrument capable of modeling the metonic cycle, predicting eclipses decades in advance, and tracking planetary movements with uncanny accuracy. The device embodies a fusion of observational astronomy, mathematics, and mechanical engineering, an interdisciplinary achievement that seems almost impossibly advanced for its time. Yet the full scope of its knowledge remains partially hidden, locked within fragments of corroded bronze and ancient inscriptions that resist complete translation. The Antikythera Mechanism also challenges assumptions about the continuity of technology. Its complexity suggests a tradition of scientific thought and practical engineering that could have flourished, perhaps even influenced subsequent innovations. Yet historical records indicate a loss of such expertise for over a millennium. How could such an advanced understanding of mechanics vanish so completely? What other inventions, Observations or methods might have been lost alongside it, hidden in libraries or workshops that succumbed to time, war, or neglect. Standing before the fragments today, one is struck by both the brilliance of its creators and the fragility of human knowledge. The mechanism is a testament to curiosity, intellect, and ambition, a human attempt to grasp the movements of the heavens with gears and bronze. Yet it is also a reminder that discovery does not guarantee preservation, that knowledge can vanish, leaving only questions for future generations. What did the Antikythera Mechanism truly represent in its own time? Was it a scientific tool, a teaching instrument, or a marvel designed to awe and inspire? And beyond what has survived, what other devices, insights, or practices of the ancient world might remain buried, waiting to be rediscovered? The mechanism does not answer these questions. It offers a tantalizing glimpse into a past where the boundary between genius and mystery was almost imperceptible, a reminder that the history of human knowledge is far more intricate and far more elusive than we often realize. Far across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean, a tiny, isolated island emerges from the blue horizon, its cliffs steep, its beaches remote, and its history shrouded in both beauty and enigma. This is Rapa Nui, known to most as Easter Island, a place of monumental stone statues, or moai, whose silent gazes have fascinated the world for centuries. But beyond these imposing figures lies another, subtler mystery, a system of glyphs known as Rongorongo, etched into wooden tablets, staffs, and other objects, a script that remains undeciphered to this day. The first Europeans arrived on Easter Island in 1722, encountering a people who spoke a Polynesian language, worshipped in sacred sites, and had long maintained oral traditions. Accounts from early explorers mention wooden tablets covered in intricate symbols, but it was not until the 19th century that these artifacts were systematically collected and documented. The tablets, often curved or rectangular, are inscribed with flowing sequences of glyphs, depicting stylized humans, animals, geometric shapes, and abstract motifs. What makes Rongorongo extraordinary is that it may represent one of the few independent inventions of writing in human history, created in isolation, far from the civilizations of Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, or the Old World. The physicality of the tablets is striking. Many are crafted from Pacific rosewood, their surfaces smoothed and carved with remarkable precision. The symbols follow a unique reading pattern known as boustrophodon, where lines alternate direction and are read in reverse on alternating rows. The glyphs themselves are elegant, almost pictorial, yet structured enough to suggest a coherent system of communication. Could this have been a fully developed writing system, capable of conveying historical records, genealogies, or religious knowledge? Or was it primarily mnemonic, a tool to aid the recitation of oral traditions rather than to encode new information? Despite decades of analysis, Rongorongo resists decipherment. Linguists and cryptographers have sought patterns in the sequences, comparing them to Polynesian languages, mythologies, and known writing systems, but no consensus has emerged. Some sequences appear repetitive, suggesting calendrical or ritual content, yet attempts to assign phonetic or semantic values to the symbols remain speculative. Could it be that the meaning of Rongorongo was partially lost even by the time early collectors documented the tablets? And if so, what knowledge, beliefs, or histories vanished alongside the decline of the script's use? The cultural context adds layers to the enigma. Rapa Nui society was highly organized, with complex kinship systems, religious ceremonies, and monumental architecture. The creation of the moai, the maintenance of ahu platforms, and the management of limited resources all demonstrate advanced social organization. Within this context, Rongorongo may have served as a repository of authority and knowledge, linking the spiritual and temporal spheres. Yet its sudden disappearance, likely accelerated by European contact, introduced diseases and social upheaval, leaves only tantalizing fragments behind. What stories, laws, or rituals did these glyphs encode? And how much of the island's history has been lost to silence? Speculative theories abound. Some scholars propose that Rongorongo may encode astronomical or calendrical knowledge, a sophisticated system to track time and seasons critical for agriculture and ceremonial life. Others suggest that it may contain genealogical records of the island's clans, or accounts of voyages and explorations across the Pacific. Fringe interpretations have ventured further, proposing lost civilizations, mystical teachings, or hidden knowledge passed down from unknown sources. Yet, all interpretations face the same fundamental obstacle. The key to decoding Rongorongo is missing, and with it, the ability to unlock the thoughts of the Rapa Nui themselves. The very nature of the artifacts adds to the intrigue. Many tablets are damaged, eroded by time, insect activity, or the humid climate, while others were removed from the island during the colonial era and scattered across museums and private collections worldwide. Each surviving piece is a fragment of a larger narrative, and each missing tablet represents a potential loss of context that may forever hinder our understanding. What secrets might lie in the portions of Rongorongo that no longer exist, or that remain undiscovered beneath the sands and forests of Easter Island? Rongorongo also invites reflection on the universality of human ingenuity. Here, in one of the most remote corners of the globe, a people seemingly isolated from the great civilizations of the Old World developed a symbolic system of remarkable sophistication. It demonstrates the human impulse to record, to codify, and to preserve knowledge, even in isolation, even under the pressures of a fragile island ecosystem. The script embodies both creativity and necessity, a tangible expression of a culture reaching toward permanence in the face of mortality and change. Standing before the tablets today, whether in a museum case or through high-resolution images, one feels a sense of quiet awe. The carvings are beautiful, intricate, and enigmatic, inviting contemplation rather than immediate comprehension. Rongorongo does not yield its secrets easily. It requires patience, imagination, and a willingness to accept uncertainty. It reminds us that human history is not only a record of what has survived, but also a story of what has been lost, forgotten, or hidden. What did the Rapa Nui hope to communicate through Rongorongo? Was it a language, a mnemonic system, or something even more abstract? A bridge between the human and the divine, a map of knowledge both earthly and cosmic. And beyond the tablets that remain, what other stories, practices, or artifacts might still lie buried on this remote island, waiting to be rediscovered? Rongorongo does not answer these questions. It poses them, silently and persistently, a reminder that some of the world's deepest mysteries continue to resist interpretation, and that the past often speaks in whispers rather than clear words. In the quiet, dusty corridors of museums and archives in Iraq, clay tablets lie stacked like layers of forgotten history. Among them is a document both remarkable and perplexing: the Sumerian king list. At first glance, it appears to be a straightforward record, a list of rulers from the earliest cities of Sumer, arranged in chronological order. But closer examination reveals a puzzle that has confounded historians, archaeologists, and scholars for nearly a century. A record that blends myth and history, the plausible and the impossible, in a way that forces us to reconsider the boundaries of ancient knowledge. The king list itself is inscribed on clay tablets in cuneiform script, the wedge-shaped writing of the Sumerians. The entries name rulers, their cities, and the length of their reigns. In many cases, the lengths are extraordinary, with early kings purportedly reigning for tens of thousands of years. Eridu, the supposed first city of civilization, is home to kings whose lives stretch across epochs, predating known historical timelines by millennia. These numbers challenge modern sensibilities. Could human lifespans have truly been so immense? Or is there another interpretation lurking beneath the surface? The historical dimension of the king list is compelling. After the mythic antediluvian rulers, the document begins to converge with archaeologically verified kings, whose reigns are more consistent with historical evidence. Cities like Uruk, Ur, and Lagash emerge as centers of power, their rulers chronicled alongside events that align with other historical records. The king list, then, is not purely myth. It is a careful attempt to document continuity, connecting a society's distant, possibly legendary past with its more tangible historical reality. Yet, even in this transition, questions abound. Why were mythic and historical kings listed together? What was the purpose of this extraordinary cataloging of power and time? Some mainstream interpretations suggest the king list was primarily political. By tracing authority back to divine or semi-divine figures, the compilers could legitimize contemporary rulers, asserting that kingship was a sacred institution inherited from the earliest eras. The list also reinforces the idea of centralized power, linking disparate city-states into a single narrative of rulership and order. But the sheer scale of some reigns, and the consistency with which they are recorded across multiple copies of the text, hints at a deeper cultural or symbolic significance. Was this merely political propaganda, or could it reflect a lost understanding of time, cosmology, or memory? Speculative theories have long surrounded the king list. Some researchers have suggested that the extraordinarily long reigns may correspond not to literal years, but to cycles of governance, astronomical observations, or symbolic measures of time. Others have proposed that the list preserves fragments of oral tradition, echoing a memory of a civilization that predates known history. Fringe interpretations have even ventured into more extraordinary territory, speculating about advanced prehistoric civilizations, contact with unknown entities, or forgotten knowledge encoded in these enigmatic figures. While such theories are difficult to substantiate, the persistence of these questions underscores the enduring allure of the king list. It straddles the line between historical record and riddle, inviting investigation without offering easy answers. The physical tablets themselves offer clues and raise further questions. Variations between different copies suggest that the king list was recopied, preserved, and possibly edited over centuries. Some fragments emphasize certain cities or rulers, while others include additional names or omit portions entirely. This inconsistency highlights the human element in its creation. The compilers were not merely recording events, they were shaping a narrative, interpreting the past according to their understanding, beliefs, and possibly political needs. What choices were made, and why? And what might have been lost in translation across generations of scribes? Beyond the numbers and names, the king list hints at a worldview in which history, myth, and authority are deeply intertwined. In Sumerian thought, kingship was not merely a function of governance, it was a bridge between the mortal and the divine. By placing mythical kings alongside historical ones, the text asserts continuity, suggesting that the sacred and the human realms were inseparable. Could the antediluvian rulers represent memories of ancient dynasties, astronomical cycles, or symbolic ages of humanity long forgotten? Or were they purely mythological constructs, designed to elevate the institution of kingship and impress upon subjects the weight of divine mandate? The Sumerian king list also reminds us of the fragility of human memory and the endurance of human curiosity. For thousands of years, the text survived earthquakes, floods, and conquests, preserved in fragile clay that could easily have crumbled to dust. Today, it serves as both a record and a challenge, a testament to the ingenuity of the Sumerians, and a riddle that continues to defy full comprehension. Each tablet, each wedge-shaped inscription is a fragment of a story that is partly lost, partly decipherable, and wholly compelling. Standing before the tablets today, one cannot help but feel a connection across millennia. The king list is not only a catalogue of rulers, it is a meditation on time, memory, and human ambition. It asks us to consider how societies understand their past, how myth and history intermingle, and how knowledge can persist or vanish across the ages. What truths lie buried beneath the extraordinary reigns, the ancient cities, and the enigmatic figures? How much of our understanding of early civilization is lost, obscured by the passage of time and the limits of human preservation? The Sumerian king list, like so many other enigmatic records we have explored, from the Rongorongo Script to the Antikythera Mechanism, does not give us final answers. Instead, it invites reflection, speculation, and wonder. It reminds us that even in the earliest civilizations, humans sought to document their world, to measure the passage of time, and to assert continuity with the past. And yet it also reminds us that the past holds mysteries beyond our reach, whispering to us across the centuries, asking us to imagine what once was and what may still be hidden. Deep within the vast, sun-baked sands of southern Egypt, far from the Nile's fertile banks, lies a landscape that seems desolate at first glance, an expanse of stone, sand, and silence stretching toward the horizon. Yet hidden within this seemingly empty desert is Nabta Playa, a site that whispers of an ancient civilization, of human ingenuity, and of mysteries that continue to defy explanation. At the heart of Nabta Playa are stone circles, megalithic arrangements set with such precision that they suggest knowledge far beyond what might be expected from a prehistoric desert community. The largest of these stone circles is often compared to Stonehenge, not only for its circular shape, but for its apparent astronomical significance. Massive stones, some weighing several tons, are arranged with careful alignment to the solstices, hinting at an awareness of celestial patterns and the rhythms of the sun. Around them are smaller circles, markers, and ceremonial structures, remnants of a complex and ritualized landscape. Walking through the site today, one cannot help but notice the deliberate care in placement. The stones are not scattered haphazardly by human hands, but positioned with purpose, as if to communicate with the heavens themselves. Nabta Playa was first inhabited around 9,000 years ago, during a period when the Sahara was far greener than it is today, a wet Sahara, with lakes, rivers, and abundant vegetation. This environmental richness allowed small communities to flourish, and archaeological evidence suggests that Nabta Playa was a center for ritual, gathering, and perhaps proto-agricultural practices. Hearths, pottery shards, and human burials indicate a society capable of organized activity, social hierarchy, and long-term planning. Yet the sophistication of the stone arrangements introduces a deeper puzzle. How did these communities, without written language or metal tools, achieve such precise astronomical alignments? Mainstream archaeologists generally interpret Nabta Playa as a ceremonial center, perhaps one of the earliest examples of proto-astronomy in human history. The positioning of stones along cardinal points and alignments with sunrise and sunset during solstices suggests a sophisticated observation of the solar calendar. Some stones may have served as markers for seasonal cycles, vital for coordinating herding, planting, or ritual activities. This is an extraordinary achievement in itself, demonstrating that even millennia ago, humans were deeply attuned to celestial rhythms and capable of translating observation into enduring monuments. Yet, Nabta Playa invites speculation beyond mainstream explanations. Some researchers have suggested that the site may encode more complex astronomical knowledge, perhaps tracking the movements of certain stars or constellations. Others have noted curious similarities between the stone arrangements at Nabta Playa and other megalithic sites across the world, prompting questions about independent invention versus shared knowledge of celestial phenomena. Could the builders have possessed insights into astronomy that have since been lost, or even traveled knowledge that connected distant regions in ways we cannot yet comprehend? The stone circles themselves are enigmatic. One central feature, often referred to as the calendar circle, is formed of smaller stones arranged around a larger circle, with alignments that correspond closely to the summer solstice. Some stones are shaped or positioned in ways that seem intentional, perhaps marking seasonal changes or ceremonial events. Nearby, burial mounds contain human remains, sometimes accompanied by artifacts and offerings, suggesting that Nabta Playa was as much a site of the dead as of the living, a place where ritual, remembrance, and cosmology intersected. What was the meaning of these arrangements to the people who built them? Were they purely practical, or did they hold a deeper spiritual or symbolic significance, connecting human life to the cycles of the sun, stars, and seasons? Speculative theories extend even further. Some have proposed that Nabta Playa could represent one of the earliest forms of sacred geometry, a site designed not only for observation, but for ritual alignment with cosmic forces. Others suggest that the precision of the stone placements implies knowledge passed down through generations, or even a system of measurement and record-keeping lost to time. Fringe ideas venture into even more extraordinary territory, hinting at ancient contacts, forgotten civilizations, or knowledge of the heavens that surpasses what we might expect from a Neolithic culture. While such theories remain unverified, the very possibility underscores the site's enduring allure. Nabta Playa resists simple explanation. The desert itself enhances the mystery. Its shifting sands and extreme conditions have preserved the stone circles, yet they also obscure other features that may have existed. Each excavation reveals fragments of the past, but the full extent of the site is still unknown. How many other stones, arrangements, or ceremonial spaces remain buried beneath the sands? What knowledge of astronomy, ritual, or society may have been encoded in features that we have yet to uncover? Nabta Playa is a reminder that even in the most inhospitable environments, humans created structures of profound significance, leaving messages that echo across millennia. Standing among the stones today, one is struck by both their simplicity and their sophistication. They are silent witnesses to a civilization that understood its environment, observed the heavens, and ritualized its place within the cosmos. And yet, despite the clarity of some alignments and the apparent purpose of the arrangements, much remains inexplicable. How did the builders conceptualize their world? What knowledge guided their hands as they transported and positioned these massive stones? And what stories, beliefs, or rituals have been lost forever, leaving only these cryptic alignments behind? Nabta Playa endures as both a site of study and a monument to human curiosity. Its stone circles are a bridge between earth and sky, between human ambition and the mysteries of the universe. They remind us that prehistoric peoples were not merely surviving, they were observing, measuring, and seeking meaning in the world around them. And they leave us with the quiet, persistent question that resonates across all the enigmas we have explored. How much of our human story remains hidden beneath the sands, and how many secrets of knowledge, ritual, and civilization are still waiting to be discovered? Perched atop a ridge on the island of Crete, the ruins of the ancient city of Phaistos stretch across the landscape, a testament to the sophistication of Minoan civilization. Amid the remnants of palaces, storage rooms, and ceremonial spaces, archaeologists unearthed an object unlike any other, a small circular clay disc, impressed with a series of symbols arranged in a spiral. This artifact, now known as the Phaistos Disc, has captivated scholars and enthusiasts for over a century, not for its size or weight, but for the mystery it embodies, a puzzle that continues to defy interpretation and challenge our understanding of Minoan writing and culture. The disc measures just over 15 centimeters in diameter, its surface divided into carefully impressed symbols, 241 in total, comprising 45 unique signs. Unlike other Minoan inscriptions, the Phaistos disc was not carved or painted. The symbols were stamped into the clay, suggesting a form of movable type long before Gutenberg would revolutionize printing in Europe. Each symbol, ranging from human figures to animals, tools, and abstract motifs, has been meticulously aligned along a spiral, beginning at the edge and working inward toward the center. The precision of the impressions indicates deliberate, careful manufacture, yet the meaning behind them remains elusive. Carbon dating and archaeological context place the disc at roughly 1700 BCE, during the height of Minoan civilization. Phaistos itself was a thriving center of trade, politics, and culture, known for its advanced urban planning, monumental architecture, and intricate artistry. The disc appears to have been crafted with great care, perhaps intended for ceremonial, administrative, or record-keeping purposes. Yet no other artifact of comparable form or function has ever been found, leaving the Phaistos disc an isolated enigma in the archaeological record. Why create such a unique object, and why leave no comparable examples to illuminate its purpose? Mainstream scholars generally treat the disc as a form of proto-writing, possibly an administrative or religious tool. Its symbols may represent syllables, words, or concepts, but attempts at decipherment have so far yielded no definitive results. Linguists and cryptographers have compared it with Linear A, the other undeciphered Minoan script, as well as with later writing systems across the Mediterranean, yet no coherent translation has emerged. The disc resists interpretation in the same way a complex code might, suggesting knowledge or communication intended for a specific audience, or perhaps a symbolic system whose context has been lost to time. Speculation runs deep. Some researchers suggest that the disc may record a ritual, a hymn, or a list of offerings, with each symbol carrying layers of symbolic meaning. Others propose that it could be a calendar or astronomical tool, encoding seasonal or celestial cycles in a spiral that mirrors the movement of the heavens. More speculative theories have entertained the idea of a lost form of writing, a forgotten script used for secret knowledge, or even a proto-printing technique indicating technological sophistication beyond what is commonly attributed to the Minoans. Each theory highlights the disc's dual nature. It is both tangible and ineffable, a physical object whose message remains intangible. The method of its manufacture adds another layer of intrigue. The use of stamps implies that the Minoans may have developed a system for producing repeated symbols efficiently, a concept that anticipates printing technology by more than 3,000 years. Could the Phaistos disc represent experimentation with reproducible communication, a precursor to ideas that would only re-emerge millennia later? Or was it a one-off creation, its purpose symbolic rather than practical, intended to preserve a single message in a medium that would endure across centuries? Equally puzzling is the disc's discovery. Found in 1908 by Italian archaeologist Luigi Pernier in the central court of the Phaistos Palace, the disc was not accompanied by textual records, inscriptions, or other objects that could provide context. This isolation complicates attempts at interpretation. Without comparative examples, we are left with a solitary artifact whose symbols evoke familiarity but resist comprehension. Each spiral of signs invites scrutiny, yet no single key has unlocked their meaning. Could the disc have been part of a larger set of artifacts, now lost to decay or destruction? Or was it intentionally unique, a vessel of knowledge meant to be understood only by its creator and intended audience? The Phaistos Disc also reflects the broader intellectual and spiritual life of the Minoans. The culture that produced it was deeply artistic, technologically sophisticated, and connected across the Mediterranean through trade and exchange. It is reasonable to imagine that the disc served a purpose aligned with these cultural values, perhaps as a ceremonial object, a mnemonic device, or a symbolic map of belief and practice. Yet, without understanding its language or context, its meaning remains tantalizingly out of reach. Today, the disc rests behind glass in the Heraklion Archaeological Museum, its spiral of symbols inviting observation and speculation. Scholars study high-resolution photographs, 3D scans, and reproductions, but the original still exerts a quiet, enduring power. It challenges our assumptions about what constitutes writing, communication, and technology in the ancient world, reminding us that even a small object can carry vast mysteries. What did the Phaistos Disc truly record? Who created it, and for what purpose? And how many other forms of knowledge, encoded in objects now lost, lie buried beneath the ruins of Phaistos and other Minoan centers? The disc offers no answers, only questions that echo across millennia, linking us to a civilization that sought to capture knowledge, ritual, and meaning in a single, enigmatic spiral of clay. It reminds us that even the smallest artifact can contain extraordinary complexity, and that the past often speaks in symbols we are still learning to recognize. The Phaistos Disc does not yield its secrets easily. It is a riddle, a message from a distant world, waiting silently for those patient enough to decipher its spiral of mystery. And as we leave behind the spiraling symbols of the Phaistos Disc, an artifact whose language remains locked away in time, we move from the shores of Crete to the high, thin air of the Bolivian Altiplano, from a world of clay impressions and Minoan mysteries into a landscape carved from volcanic stone, where another unanswered question waits in cold, still silence. Here, at nearly 13,000 feet above sea level, where the wind moves unhindered across a vast plateau, the ancient city of Tiahuanaco, or Tiahuanaco, rests beneath an immense Andean sky. Scattered across its ruins lies one monolithic monument that has captured imaginations for generations, a single piece of stone standing as an archway to nowhere, known as the Gate of the Sun. This immense doorway, carved from a single block of andesite weighing more than 10 tons, rises from the earth like the remnant of a forgotten civilization's ceremonial threshold. Time has weathered its edges, cracked its surface, and eroded its steps, yet the structure maintains a presence both solemn and commanding. It does not merely stand, it looms, as if still guarding an invisible passage. The top of the gate bears an intricately carved frieze dominated by the figure of the so-called staff god, or Viracocha, in later Andean traditions. Rays extend from his head, some ending in stylized pumas, others in geometric patterns. Below him, rows of winged figures flank both sides, some human, some bird-like, some perhaps representing beings or myths whose meaning has faded into obscurity. Each one is etched with meticulous detail, the work of a culture skilled in stonecraft and symbolism. As archaeologists studied the gate and the surrounding ruins, the first great question emerged: how old is it? Conventional estimates place Tiahuanaco's peak around 500 to 1000 CE. Yet some early investigators argued for a much older origin, even suggesting the monument might be aligned with astronomical events from thousands of years earlier. These ideas remain controversial, but they highlight an enduring truth about the Gate of the Sun. It resists simple categorization. The stone itself offers clues, but not answers. A deep fissure splits the gate into two uneven halves, possibly the result of an ancient earthquake, or perhaps an intentional attempt to move the monolith. But why would such an enormous, sacred object be relocated? And if the gate once formed part of a larger structure, what entire complex might have stood around it? The carvings, too, present mysteries. The central figure is widely believed to represent a creator deity, yet scholars still debate the meaning of the radiating symbols, the expression of the winged attendants, and the purpose of the repeating iconography. Some researchers propose that the frieze may function as an early calendar system, with the small figures representing days, months, or celestial cycles. Others suggest the imagery encodes myths or cosmological principles central to the Tiahuanaco worldview. And yet, if this is a calendar or a map of the heavens, its system does not align neatly with Andean astronomical traditions known from later periods. It seems to belong to a deeper, perhaps earlier layer of cultural thought, one that has not survived in written form. Then comes the question of craftsmanship. The gate stone is not local to the area immediately surrounding the ruins. The andesite is believed to have been quarried from a site miles away, requiring transport across uneven terrain and up steep inclines to reach its final location. How did the builders move such colossal stones without the wheel, draft animals, or metal tools as we understand them? The precision of the carving also raises questions. Straight cuts, right angles, and smooth surfaces appear in other nearby structures as well, most famously at Pumapunku, leading some observers to wonder about the techniques the Tiahuanaco engineers employed. Were they working with tools now lost to time, techniques not yet rediscovered? Some fringe interpretations, even if speculative, ask whether the Gate of the Sun might preserve knowledge inherited from an earlier, unknown culture. Others wonder if the monument originally belonged to a different era altogether, later incorporated into Tiahuanaco society as a sacred relic. These are theories without proof, but their persistence speaks to the gate's ability to provoke wonder. There is also the question of alignment. Many believe the Gate of the Sun may once have pointed toward specific celestial events, solstices, equinoxes, or the rising and setting of certain stars. But the gate no longer stands in its original location. At some point in the past, it was moved or toppled, altering any astronomical precision it may have once had. Without knowing its exact orientation, modern researchers can only speculate. Was the monument positioned to track the movements of the sun across the high plateau, or did it mark a mythic or ceremonial axis, an intersection between the earthly and divine? We are left with fragments, stone fragments, cultural fragments, symbolic fragments, each hinting at a larger whole. Yet the full picture remains just beyond reach. Standing before the Gate of the Sun today, amid the quiet expanse of the Altiplano, the monument feels both ancient and strangely alive. The wind moves through its opening as if passing through a doorway between worlds. The carved figures seem to watch not just the landscape, but the passage of time itself. And perhaps that is where the power of the gate truly lies, in its stillness, in its silence, in the deep and humbling recognition that an entire civilization once encoded its beliefs, its rituals, and its understanding of the cosmos into a single piece of stone, and that we, thousands of years later, can only guess at the meaning. What message did the creators of the Gate of the Sun hope to preserve? Was it a calendar, a ritual marker, a cosmic map, or something else entirely? And if we could decipher its language of symbols and stone, what might it reveal about the people who built it, and the world they believed they inhabited? For now, the gate remains an unanswered question carved into the earth. An opening that leads not into a temple or a chamber, but deeper into mystery itself. And as the cold winds of the Andean plateau fade behind us, carrying with them the unanswered questions of Tiahuanaco's monolithic gate, we travel now across continents and millennia, back to the river valleys of ancient Mesopotamia. Here, in the cradle of civilization, another mystery waits. Not carved on a massive stone, but etched instead into objects small enough to fit in the palm of a hand. Objects whose scale belies the immense questions they raise. They are known as the Sumerian cylinder seals, found in the ruins of temples, buried in ancient administrative complexes, and uncovered in long-lost royal archives. These seals, some no larger than a modern spool of thread, hold some of the most intricate artwork of the ancient world. Cut from stones like lapis lazuli, serpentine, or hematite, each seal bears a continuous, detailed scene carved around its circumference. When rolled across wet clay, it leaves behind a complete image: gods, kings, animals, hybrid beings, astronomical symbols, and scenes of myth or ritual unfolding in a single, seamless impression. To stand before one of these miniature artifacts is to stand before a world in miniature. The craftsmanship is astonishing. Every line is precise. Every figure is intentional. And in an era that predates the invention of the wheel in some regions, the complexity of these carvings raises immediate questions. How did artisans achieve such detail with the tools available over 5,000 years ago? And more intriguingly, what exactly were they trying to depict? At the simplest level, cylinder seals served practical purposes. They acted as signatures, as authentication marks, as administrative stamps in a bureaucratic world that revolved around clay tablets. The Sumerians used them to seal goods, approve transactions, and record ownership. In that sense, cylinder seals were the earliest precursors to personal identification, ancient ID cards pressed into clay. But the imagery on these seals far surpasses mere decoration. Many seals depict scenes of worship or divine presence: gods seated on thrones, celestial beings holding staffs, and humans standing in poses of reverence. Others display imagery that appears to blend mythology with astronomy: stars arranged in patterns, crescents hovering above mountains, or winged figures flanking cosmic symbols whose meanings remain uncertain. Some of the most debated seals show what appear to be unfamiliar creatures or objects. One seal, often cited in speculative discussions, seems to depict a central star surrounded by smaller spheres arranged in a pattern that some interpret as a kind of solar system diagram. Mainstream scholars view this as symbolic or religious iconography, consistent with Mesopotamian cosmology. But for those leaning toward more speculative interpretations, the precision of the arrangement invites further questions. Could these symbols represent astronomical knowledge beyond what we typically attribute to early civilizations? Or are they purely theological, representations of a divine order expressed through familiar celestial metaphors? The seal's depictions of hybrid beings add further layers of intrigue. Creatures that are part man, part animal appear frequently. Is this simply the mythic imagination of a people who populated their stories with gods and monsters? Or could these images reflect ritual practices, symbolic metaphors, or ancient traditions now lost to history? Even the process of creating a cylinder seal carries its own mystery. To carve a continuous scene around a curved stone surface with such precision, using simple tools and abrasive powders, required skill, patience, and a deep understanding of the material. Some artisans achieved such depth and clarity that the figures seem almost animated when the seal is rolled across clay. The technique reflects a level of craftsmanship not easily replicated even with modern tools. How many years did it take to master such precision? How many generations refined the skill? And were there specialized workshops dedicated solely to producing these miniature masterpieces? Another question lingers. Why were the seals designed to roll? Other ancient cultures carved symbols into flat tablets, walls, and stelae, but Mesopotamia embraced the cylinder seal, an object that creates a repeating, dynamic impression, almost like a roll of ancient film. Was there symbolic significance in this motion? Did the act of rolling the seal across clay carry ceremonial meaning? Or was it simply practical, a way to create long, uninterrupted images across documents and containers? The seals also act as repositories of history. They depict clothing, architecture, social hierarchy, and ritual practice, details that often do not survive in physical form. Through these tiny carvings, we glimpse the world of the Sumerians, their beliefs, their fears, their aspirations. Yet for all they reveal, they conceal just as much, because every seal raises the same fundamental question. What did these images truly mean to the people who carved them? Some scholars believe that many cylinder seals were deeply personal objects, items worn around the neck or kept in small containers, representing an individual's identity, lineage, or spiritual protection. Others argue that the seals served as miniature narratives, encoding myths or historical events in symbolic form. And then there are those who view them as cosmological maps, representations of the universe as the Sumerians understood it, perhaps even reflecting knowledge derived from long oral traditions predating the rise of cities. More fringe interpretations suggest far older origins, inherited technologies, or lost knowledge passed down through forgotten cultures. These theories lack firm evidence, yet their persistence speaks to the powerful sense of mystery the seals evoke. When one gazes at a seal depicting fantastical beings and unfamiliar symbols, the boundary between mythology and meaning becomes blurred. Today, thousands of cylinder seals sit behind museum glass, their tiny scenes still crisp despite the passage of more than 5,000 years. They remain among the most enigmatic artifacts of early civilization, objects that speak of order, of story, of identity, yet whose deeper layers remain stubbornly obscured. What stories were once told through these images? What rituals or beliefs shaped their creation? And how many meanings have faded as centuries passed, leaving us with symbols we can describe, but not fully understand? The Sumerian cylinder seals remind us that even the smallest artifact can carry cosmic significance. And as we continue our journey across the archaeological mysteries of the ancient world, they urge us to look closer, to question deeper, the hidden messages carved into the very first pages of human history.